in both of those sports. MVP, Brock Purdy. We're here to break it all down. Before we start, we'll go over what we've been watching, starting it off with this show, and then continue on. But what have you been watching? The Brickyard podcast, continued segment on the show. Um, what have we been watching this week in
Y-
the Brickyard Sports?
Yeah, so this weekend did some vitamins and watched some horror movies. And so we watched The Invisible Man. That one's cool. Good suspense, solid modern horror movie. Not the worst. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And then suggested after that was Grizzly Revenge 2. And it had George Clooney, Charlie Sheen, and Laura Dern in it. I'm like, okay. And this is like a bad action movie from like 1983. And so George Clooney, Charlie Sheen, Laura Dern. Spoiler alert: if you haven't seen Grizzly 2 Revenge by 2025, they die immediately. And not only are their names at the front of the credits to start, but their names are also at the top of the credits at the end of the movie. And they're just trying to trick people into watching it by telling them a young George Clooney was going to be in it. And then he immediately dies by a bear. And then the last half of this movie is just a concert sped up and rewound over and over again on loop, because the plot of this movie is, oh my god, there's a bear in the woods and it might come down to a concert with a bunch of people, so we need to make sure the bear doesn't raid 1,000 people like it's a hungry shark. Like, no, a bear is not going to run up on a music festival and be like, oh hey, what's up, can I get in the mosh pit? Like, no, they stay away from that shit. Maybe they'll go out in the hang out with the dumpsters, play with some trash. So we watched this movie and we're just watching the end of it, and you see just like,
A
and
bear's
that's
just
like the
grooving.
last half of the movie. And then they were like, they would have bands go on stage and they would recycle some of the bands throughout the end of the movie.
Jesus Christ. Now, is this like a B-list movie, or is this like because
This
you
is like
mentioned
a
Charlie? You mentioned like all these actors. I've been thinking this is like a bigger budget movie.
so this is like a C-list movie. Like, it's kind of a cult status. So I asked ChatGPT to just kind of summarize the filming of it, and it said the filming began in Hungary in 1983 as the sequel to the 1976 film Grizzly. The project quickly encountered major setbacks when the original producer disappeared after the first day of shooting, leaving the production without funding. Co-producer Suzanne C. Nagy stepped in, securing new investors, completing principal photography within 45 days. However, further complications arose, and the initial producer resurfaced in Paris, claiming full control over the film during its editing phase. Additional challenges included malfunctioning 16-foot mechanical bear, and a legal dispute that delayed the film's completion. And then, despite these obstacles, Nagy remained committed to finishing the project. She eventually self-funded the post-production, hired a professional editor, secured distribution deals, leading to the film's release in 2020.
So this movie was produced in the '80s, and she, on her own volition, said, "I need to get this movie made over the next 40 years
For COVID. It was a
for
COVID
COVID."
movie. It came out in 2020.
I just anytime a movie needs to take longer than 10 years to be made, it never works. It never works ever. And like looking at this here, it's got 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. Does it look like a movie made in the '80s?
Oh yeah, no, it looks like a movie made in the 1800s. And then it also goes on to say, despite its troubled production, Grizzly 2 Revenge has garnered a cult following, in part due to its early performances by now famous actors George Clooney, Laura Dern, and Charlie Sheen, who appear briefly in the film, even though it's advertised like they're the stars of the movie. And then who also starred in the production described the movie as fantastically extraordinarily mad, noting the chaotic nature of the set, mysterious disappearance of the mechanical bear as well.
It's a mechanical bear.
Yeah.
It's not even
So
like
it's a
CGI.
16-foot mechanical bear, and it kept malfunctioning, and then randomly it disappeared on set.
Jesus Christ. I'm looking at these pictures. This thing is nightmare fuel. Where did you guys watch this? You guys pay for this?
No, it was on Max. Or
Oh, it's
no,
on
not
Max.
Max. Oh no, we watched it on I think it was on Peacock actually. Yeah.
See, this is a movie I would see on Amazon Prime because Amazon Prime has the most cursed movies known to man. But yeah, this checks out as a cursed movie. Well, I didn't watch a movie quite as cursed as Grizzly 2 Adventure, but I did. You know me, I've been on this Star Wars kick of late. Been watching all of the George Lucas Star Wars, and I stumbled on Attack of the Clones on my list because I'm watching the prequels in reverse, which I would recommend for those who have already watched it to do the same because it makes it a little more interesting. I won't get into like the depths of it. People have had enough time to watch Revenge to these movies, but Attack of the Clones is by far of all the 6 Star Wars before Disney went and ruined it. Attack of the Clones is by far the corniest and worst of the 6 Star Wars. When I watch Padme and Anakin like fall in love on their planet that they're in, it sounds like the person who wrote the dialogue for that movie has never talked to a woman. And that's what it felt like with George Lucas. Like George Lucas clearly has never talked to a woman or has fallen in love with a woman. It just sounds like a basement dweller who wrote dialogue for a love scene. That being said, yeah, Attack of the Clones of the 6 movies prior to Disney is the worst. It feels like I'm watching Twilight when I was watching it.
Yeah. Some notable quotes too from Anakin in this movie. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. He also
Yes.
goes on to say, I'm haunted by the kiss you should have never given me.
Yeah. It literally I got forced to watch Twilight a couple of years ago, and it felt like I was watching Twilight. It's like a 2000s terrible rom-com movie. How it felt watching that movie. Not to say like I still enjoyed it, right? We got like the droids fighting, and there's like for like Star Wars lore, if you care about it, if you're a nerd like myself, then maybe you can appreciate it. But overall, it was it was the worst of the 6 that I've watched. And I've ended up watching I watched Phantom Menace again, which is a little overhated. I watched A New Hope on the flight back to from Virginia, and then I'm watching Rogue One next. But watching all of these kind of like in order, and Attack of the Clones is the worst by far. They jump ahead 10 years from Phantom Menace, and Anakin's like 19, and he's trying to riz up Padme, who's like 27 in the movie. So a little bit of an age gap. Can't blame him there, but just so many bad scenes in this movie that make no sense. But Disney went ahead and made it even worse. So Star Wars, they Disney. When I think about like what ruined Star Wars, because I'm rewatching the prequels. I've rewatched all the prequels now. The prequels, I understand people's criticisms. However, it's the fans that really ruin Star Wars. Because you want to talk about maybe the most toxic fan base in all of music or movie history, or really just entertainment history, it is Star Wars fans. I watched Phantom Menace. The 10-year-old kid that plays Anakin received death threats. People were telling him to kill himself because of the way he acted in your child movie.
He's still
It,
better than Hayden Christensen, and he's also the star of Jingle All the Way.
and then they did the same thing with Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks guy, like genuinely still suicidal for being. I mean, granted, his character is extremely annoying, but that being said, suicide, depression, and like people were literally just like he couldn't go outside for like a decade because people were bullying the shit out of that kid. Like Star Wars fans, as someone who identifies as a Star Wars fan historically, that movie, like people are just not like Star Wars fans are just terrible.
Yeah, no, it's like the same cool like level as like Eminem fans here. It's like Eminem went through his prequel phase and it's still like better than most sci-fi movies, but there's a lot of cringe there and there's a lot of parts that are tough to get through, but there's also some redeeming qualities on there as well. So it's feel like it's kind of similar to that or like the Swifties too. It's like anytime anything happens and you're sending someone death threats, like I didn't think the kid in Phantom Menace was that bad. I thought the writing it's like, what actor is supposed to make magic with that writing? Like, Ewan McGregor's trying his best. I forget the guy's name who plays Count Dooku. I know he's
Christopher
Sir
Lee.
something. Yeah, Sir Christopher Lee. Yeah, but like
Hmm.
you have like good actors there, but like I don't think Hayden Christensen was a good actor, and he can like take the hate, but like at the same time, it's just bad writing. And like visually though, it's still appealing. There's like some parts of Attack of the Clones that I like. I like Obi-Wan Kenobi's storyline the best throughout the prequel series, but you know, if you want like a good Star Wars story, and you don't necessarily want to watch the movies, like just play Lego Star Wars. Like it's the best Star Wars content, either that or Attack of the Clones season 7.
Yeah, I think rewatching the prequels and watching like the original trilogy, um, personally, it's the fans that ruined it for me. But also, um, I completely understand why Anakin went to the dark side. Like first movie, for those who haven't watched the first movie, he's this kid that's like significantly more powerful and much more potential than Yoda, but yet they still don't want to train him. The second movie, he falls in love with this girl, but he can't be with her because of fucking the political landscape of Star Wars. And they basically say, like, you're too sad because you watched your mother die in your arms. We don't want to train you. You're not, Jedi worthy. And then in the third movie, which causes him to break bad, they add him to the Jedi Council, but they don't make him master, which has never been done in Jedi history. And then all that time, Palpatine's like, "No, man, you're good at what you do. Like you're a good Jedi. They should honor you." So the whole time, like I completely understand watching the prequels backwards why Anakin went to the dark side. I think any sane person would have done the exact same thing. Jedi's fumbled.
Yeah, you know, it's like when you get a job and then you're like promised certain expectations and then they repeatedly don't follow through. They treat you like a child if you work at any corporation. Like, you know, that the culture there is to treat everyone like a kindergartner. Like, oh, we have coloring day today. And it's kind of like almost like feels the same way with Anakin to a point. And like, you make a good point where it's like, well, it's like this is the first time in history it hasn't happened and I'm supposed to be the chosen one. Like, I don't understand that. It kind of just feels like unnecessary hate at this point, like from the Jedi Council. I'm trying to think of like a coaching example, like when they benched a star player just to send a message.
Yeah, I
It'd
can't think
almost
of
be
one.
like benching, like, well, it's kind of like when Bill Belichick benched Malcolm Butler. Like you have a top corner, the best corner on your team. You just bench him. Be like if you just it's like Peyton, we'll have you sit a year behind Dan Orlovsky. Like what?
Yeah, it makes no sense. And honestly, I understand why he went to the dark side, and that's why like when I watch it again, I'm like, was this ever like why wouldn't he not go to the dark side ultimately? So Star Wars, I'll probably my next one that I watch will probably be Rogue One, which I'm excited to watch, and then I might watch the Disney sequels just to remember how bad they are because it's been like a decade since I watched them, and I've only
You
watched
gotta
them
watch
once.
those backwards too, because I feel like you'll watch the first one, get tricked again, like, oh yeah, this wasn't too bad, right? And then you get to
Yeah,
the second one. Honestly, like the second one is the most polarizing because a lot of people didn't like it, but I understand what the director was trying to do. But at the same time, if you're a company and you're trying to make a trilogy of movies, hey, maybe don't select a director for the middle of your series who's like, I don't give a fuck what happened in the last movie. I'm honestly going to rewrite all of that. Like, if you just started the series with him, that would have been fine. All right, we're getting a Ryan Johnson trilogy, but we're going to go cookie cutter J.J. Abrams, have a lot of lens flare, and then let someone else take over who completely doesn't share the vision. Like Disney has no one else to blame except for themselves for just being kind of like irrational. It like feels like a Jets front office move at this point where they're like, we don't have a plan with Aaron Rodgers. That didn't work out. Let's bring in Justin Fields. What are we doing again? I'm not sure. Okay, Aaron Glenn, fix our problem. Even though every single problem in Detroit was defense, and you're the one common thread there. So I don't know.
yeah, I like those comparisons with the Disney sequels. They're like they get all these like if they just had J.J. Abrams do it or they just had Ryan Johnson do it, they would all be fine. I think the second Star Wars of that trilogy, The Last Jedi, like if you remove the Star Wars lens from it, it's like actually a good movie. There's good plot twists in it, some good scenes. There are some cringe, but that's expected in a movie like Star Wars. But the problem is that you have one guy who's super like nostalgic Star Wars nerd like J.J. Abrams, who does a bunch of fan service in the first movie. And in the second movie, he's like, I don't give a fuck about your fan service. I'm not even a big Star Wars fan. Let me kill all the characters that you'd built. And then the biggest mistake was making J.J. Abrams the third movie because they were supposed to have the guy from Breaking Bad do it. But he's like, no, I don't want to do a part of this. They had Colin
Wait,
Trevorrow.
Vince Gilligan or different guy?
No, Colin Trevorrow directed a couple of the Breaking Bad movies or Breaking Bad,
Okay.
like season 5. But they have J.J. Abrams come back, and J.J. Abrams is just trying to reverse everything Ryan Johnson did. Ryan Johnson's just trying to erase everything J.J. Abrams did. So it's like, it was a fucking nightmare from the start, and then they didn't know what they were going to do at the end of it. Like, there was no conclusion. The first one, it's like, all right, Luke Skywalker is going to go from, some fucking slave on Tatooine to beating Darth Vader and bringing balance to the Force. Prequels, it's how does Darth Vader become Darth Vader? The sequel trilogy, money. That was why it was made. That was all.
Yeah. It was made for money, and I understand that too. But like, I liked what they were doing with like these individual movies, like Rogue One, to fill in some of those gaps because I feel like that was actually a really good movie with a purpose, and you got a really good director, Gareth Edwards, to do that movie. He's directing the new Jurassic World movie, which gets me a little bit excited for it at least because he did that. He did the 2014 Godzilla movie as well, so like he knows how to get like a good spectacle, get like a nice wide shot, and do set pieces really well. And so, like, when you're doing that, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. But when you start to do, all right, we're doing May and December now, all right, now it's too much. We're going to do episodic, and then our spin off movies are just going to be in May, and we're going to try and do a young Han Solo trilogy and cast someone that no one likes or wanted to play Han Solo.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the Han Solo movie. I'm going to try and watch it, but I'm not very
It's
excited for it.
fine.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's bad. It just seems like it's just inoffensive. They don't hire like Han Solo in the original series has so much charisma with Harrison Ford. Hiring somebody to replace him, which obviously like Harrison Ford's like a million years old now, I get it, but like you just hired the wrong Han Solo actor. They did right with Lando, like they had Donald Glover do it, but I feel like again, like you just inoffensive, like fine action movie, but it's just cookie cutter Star Wars bullshit that Disney's been pumping out. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
no.
I'll
What they
I'll
could have
give them my
used
thing.
though is one of those Harrison Ford lawyers to just go, "What we're doing is wrong," and then maybe it would have been okay. I also
Yeah.
rewatched the TED show this weekend, and I will say, I've watched it 3 times now, and each time I start it, I watch it all the way front to back. Like honestly, like that show gets better each time I watch it.
It is a
Because
great
when they're
show.
fucking with the kid, like, I want you to show up in a sailor suit and say ahoy.
Yeah, it's good. They're making season 2, right? Aren't they making an
Yeah,
animated
no,
show?
they're making season 2. Yeah, it's coming out.
I'm excited for it. Yeah, the first one was really good. So I'm excited for that. But that is what we've been watching. And then in the NFL, like what we've been waiting for pretty much since Super Bowl ended, the schedule release. Highly anticipated. Each team does their special schedule release. I think the Chargers did it via Minecraft this time around. But
Of
the
course they
schedule
did.
is back, and the NFL is ready to go. We got a couple months out from the show, but we have the toughest strength of schedule. We have every team's front to back schedule. So we'll go through it, give our thoughts and over unders, what teams are expected to perform out for this year.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and then we can do the strength of schedule. Then we'll probably go through each team's schedule in depth and do a full breakdown once we know where they'll be playing, home or away. That's always one of our favorite off season segments to do here. But let's start, I guess, easiest to hardest. Let's start bottom to top, I guess.
All right. So easiest strength of schedule this year. Now, for before we go over it, the team with the easiest strength of schedule has not made the playoffs in 3 consecutive years. The last team to make the playoffs with the easiest strength of schedule was the Dallas Cowboys in 2022. This year, easiest strength of schedule
Really?
is
They had
the
the easiest schedule that year?
yeah, the year that they went 12-5. Yeah,
That's
where they
why they get
lost.
their ass kicked so bad. Is that was versus the Packers, right? Or is that the 49ers in the second round?
That was the
I think.
49ers in the
Yeah.
divisional round because they beat up on like I think they beat the Giants or something like that
Yeah. They
in
beat
the
the
first round.
Giants twice. They had the Commanders who had like Carson Wentz or something.
Yeah, but they were the last team to make the playoffs this year. this easiest strength of schedule is the San Francisco 49ers with average strength of schedule at 0.415. So basically just facing 7 and 8, 7 and 10, 8 and 9 teams ultimately. Um, with their strength of schedule, I mean, I still think they had a lot of injuries last year. Do I think that they can break playoff record? I'm not entirely sure. I feel like the Rams got a lot better getting Devontae, but easiest strength of schedule for the 49ers. Probably can still sneak in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, I think you should be able to, especially with that record. Brock Purdy secure. He has his money now. So I think for me with the 49ers, it's going to be how healthy will they be? And if we're looking this, assuming they'll be entirely healthy, they should make it into the playoffs, at least as a wild card team, because the Rams have gotten better. But the Rams are still one of those teams who has been good for a while under Sean McVay, so they don't necessarily feel like they have anything to prove in the regular season. I feel like they'll get into like 2 or 3 week skids where they drop a couple games, where there is like some opportunity to be had, and then Seattle, we'll find out. We'll find out with Seattle. You had to draft a quarterback here, but you got rid of Geno Smith, so life without Geno. Life without DK Metcalf. How's it going to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba? And then Arizona being reliable. I mean, that's pretty funny. So
Yeah, exactly. Um, second easiest strength to schedule the Saints. If there's anything that the NFL odds makers can do is do anything they can to make the Saints have an easier path to winning a game in this upcoming season. Because good lord, who are their quarterbacks again? Remind me. Because Derek Carr retired, so we're not going to see Derek Carr. And then they have Tyler Shaw, the guy that they drafted. And then
yep, that's
outside
the
of that, I
still.
mean, it's pretty abysmal. Let me look at their depth chart. Tyler Shaw, Spencer Radler, and Jake Hayner. That is their quarterback room. Alvin Kamara's still there. Chris Olave is still there. They brought in Brandon Cooks this offseason, but this
Oh,
team is just going to be bad, really bad. They're honestly probably working for Arch Manning. They want Arch Manning to be on their team.
yeah, you brought Brandon Cooks back. Like the Patriots traded for him in 2015.
Yeah, he's like 15 years in the league now. He's not the same player. We saw him last year on, I believe, the Cowboys, and I mean, he was like their fourth receiver. Even when CD Lamb was banged up, like it's just not going to happen.
And he's been good too, but like ever since that hit in the Super Bowl, like there are a few players that have done some of the dumbest plays I've ever seen for different reasons. But that, do you remember when he got knocked out in the Super Bowl? I think it was with Atlanta. He like turned all the way around and the guy just like hit him right in the back of the head. He gets knocked out cold on the field. Like he hasn't really been the same since. He's just gonna be walking around New Orleans. It's the place he's drafted. It's like, oh, it's my first year in the NFL. This is exciting. So he's gonna think he's a rookie again.
um, next team was the Patriots. This is actually one that I am excited
Let's
for, not just because growing up in New England, but Patriots have a good opportunity where I'm not believing in the Jets this year. I just don't trust Justin Fields. I don't trust Aaron Glenn. I don't ever trust the Jets. The Dolphins, Tua has regressed ever since he got his first concussion, and he's only continued to get hurt more. Patriots have an opportunity where they got a bunch of players on defense. They bolstered up their offensive line, spent that fourth overall pick on Will Campbell. They went out and drafted a receiver, and they went after and got a running back in the second round. Drake May has a second year. They get a right coach in Mike Vrabel. I think the Patriots can benefit greatly from having one of the easiest schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. Because with the Patriots, you need an easier schedule, and you went out there and you got Stephon Diggs on your team, and I think he'll help. But at the end of the day, what it's going to come down to them is going to be that defense, and can the defense carry them through enough games to give Drake May a chance? And what we saw last year from Drake May is a guy with probably the worst wide receiving core in the league. I know some people, for some reason, got this idea that Pittsburgh had a really bad wide receiver core. I don't know. You still had George Pickens and Pat Fryermuth. Like the Patriots are throwing to absolute nobodies, and Drake May's still finding a way to make plays here. So I feel like that will be a team that will definitely be in the running for a wild card, if not their division next year, because you have the third easiest schedule in the league. So I'm excited for this team, and this gets me excited about football again.
Yeah, I'm excited. And then Cam Ward for the Titans comes next. They have the fourth easiest schedule, followed by the Panthers and Cardinals and Jets. But Tennessee Titans, obviously, they struggled last year. Will Levis experiment didn't quite work out for them, but they benefit from having the worst schedule last year. Now they have the easiest schedule, one of the easiest schedules for 2025.
Yeah, no, they have one of the easiest schedules here, and you can't trust the Jaguars. The Texans prove that they are one of those teams that will play mid in the regular season, but they can really step it up in the playoffs when it comes down to it. So, but there's still room to beat them. And then the Colts, who knows? Like, who knows with the Indianapolis Colts next season with what Shane Steichen's going to do? This is probably Shane Steichen's last chance if he doesn't make the playoffs. He's on his way out the door. So I think, like, if you're Tennessee, you have a chance to surprise a lot of people and really be an interesting team next year. And would I be surprised if they won their division? In the South? Absolutely not. This is going to be one of the divisions I feel like every year we're just going to have a new division winner. And then also, is Trevor going to find himself again, too?
Yeah. I don't know if I trust the Titans to win the division, but I can see them winning more games than we expect them to. I'm going to get the over-unders for wins projections this year and see where we're ranking there. But it should be an interesting run. I don't trust anybody in that division outside of the Texans, so I agree with that. Panthers are the next team. Panthers, I think, can surprise some teams. I like what I saw at the end of the year with Bryce Young. It felt like he got his confidence back that we haven't really seen since Alabama. So Panthers didn't really make too many crazy moves, but I do think that they could be better, especially with uncertainty with the Falcons, the Saints being dreadful, should be getting 2 wins right there. And then with the Bucks, will the Bucks continue to dominate that division, or will their age start to show? I think they should be better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Panthers still have a strong chance. I don't think they're going to win their division next year. I feel like it's still going to be Tampa's to lose, but it'll probably be Atlanta, depending on Michael Penix.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll go through a couple of the list of the next few. We have Cardinals, Jets, Colts, and Jags. And then we're
What
starting to
numbers
get
are
into the
those,
middle of the
just for
pack here.
reference?
But of those 4 teams, I don't really care. I think all of those teams have so many question marks. Cardinals, their defense is pathetic. I have no hope in the Jets. The Colts, if I had to bank on how that team's going to go, I feel like they're going to be 7-10, 8-9. Anthony Richardson, AR 50% completion rating. I don't trust the Colts. And then the Jags. I mean, it's great they got Travis Hunter, but like, who else is? They have BTJ now. That's cool, but their defense is still bad, like really bad. So I don't
And
trust
you
any of these
also
teams that I
hired a
mentioned.
retard as your head coach as well. Like, you hired a special needs man
Yeah,
as your head coach, and sometimes that's good, but like, it's not good when you have like the whole, like, I get we've had the Nick Siriannis and we've had the who's taking the bus today moment, but like, the guy just had the crazy eyes of like Duval. Like, what's going on? It's like his eyes are attached to two separate heads.
yeah. And then their GM is like a 14-year-old boy, and then their owner is a villain in Mario. Like, am I supposed to trust anything the Jags do? No. Colts, I
No.
don't trust them. Jets, I don't trust them. None of these teams past the Panthers, I have any faith for this upcoming year to do anything whatsoever.
And it's like, does Kyler
And then
care? Like, with the
I'll
Cardinals.
go,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry, I think
I
you
don't
broke
trust
up
the
there.
Cardinals. And then the next 5, we have Bills, average strength of schedule 4.67, and then Seahawks, Dolphins, Falcons, and Bucks. And then we get into the midpoint of this schedule here. Um, the Bills, obviously, I think will benefit from having easier schedules for obvious reasons. They have an easy schedule. They have 2 teams in their division that I think are going to be terrible. They're going to take a step back. Plus, obviously, they have Josh Allen. They got Khalil Shakur. They got James Cook. Good defense, and they've dominated that division. They'll be fine. And then there are other teams like Seahawks. I think they took a step back going from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold. Clearly in a rebuild. I don't think their schedule matters too much. Dolphins will get worse. Falcons, they're kind of that question mark team. How good will Michael Penix be? And then the Bucks, I think they should still be strong in that division.
Yeah, it should be strong. I think the Falcons and Bills and Bucks will all benefit from that. With the Bills, though, I think their issue has been they just need an easier schedule in the regular season, and they really need for it to matter, play the Kansas City Chiefs at home. And then I think that'll really help them because if they could only get home field advantage and win their division and play the Kansas City Chiefs in Buffalo, maybe then they could beat them, right? Right?
Hopefully. I mean, they got to win eventually, right? I mean,
I think Brick froze. That's all right. But we'll see with the Bills. Hopefully they win eventually. Hopefully they win. But will it be as soon as Brick comes back? We'll see. But what's gonna happen first? Is Brick's internet gonna work in Phoenix because they only allow him to have one internet provider in his apartment, or are the Buffalo Bills gonna beat the Kansas City Chiefs? You tell me in the comment section below. Who do you think it has a better shot of winning? Brick's internet or the Buffalo Bills beating the Kansas City Chiefs? Personally, I think it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they can't really control that they can losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. It seems like they do it every time, but you can control where you live with your Wi-Fi and your internet. Just move. If you have bad Wi-Fi, it's something that should help you be able to void your lease here. So that is part of the strength of schedule here. Let me go ahead and get that pulled up too. So we had the Buffalo Bills, and then what do y'all think about Atlanta next year? I think they'll be good. Okay, he's back. We're doing a poll um, in the comments, and it was like, what's going to happen first? Is your internet going to work, or the Buffalo Bills going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And it's pretty split right now.
I'm gonna I'm gonna bet on the Bills to be honest, because my internet, Cox Internet, should be in jail for the shit that they do to the city of Phoenix. It's disgusting. Um, but to answer your question, for like the Bills,
Still buffering. That's all right. All right, should be back now. Head is slowly moving side to side. It's like the new Mission Impossible coming out. Mission Impossible stream. And Tyrese Halliburton wearing a Spoken Note QR code. That's crazy. NBA jerseys go wilding out. They're just putting QR codes on them now. Like, here you go. All right. He's coming back in slow motion. Now it's like a nature documentary, slowly turning back and forth in the chair. The internet puts everyone in slow motion. All right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No. Well, let me pull up the strength of schedule and keep going down the list. All right. Crazy. What a choke job by the Knicks. All right. He officially left. So we'll pull up the strength of schedule when he comes back. But so we have the Buffalo Bills is where we left off here, and then the easiest was the 49ers. We go up and have Buffalo down there, Tennessee, Miami, Carolina. Then it's the Colts, Seahawks. Then after that, have the Raiders. We have the Broncos, and then we have the Rams here. Total records, they're going up against 146, 43, 147, 142, 148, 141. Say like the Raiders could be interesting this year with Geno Smith because you do have a really good running back now. So we'll see how he pans out. It's really the offensive line. Can you figure that out? And how much receiver help are you going to get? But you still have one of the best tight ends of the league, and he may be an MVP candidate or Offensive Player of the Year next year if you're Oakland. And then so you could be interesting at least. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but yeah, at least have an easier schedule than Denver. Denver, can I see them getting back to the playoffs and becoming a dynasty with Bo Nix? I don't know. I don't think so. And I think they're still going to be missing a few pieces. Still need to solidify a run game. We'll see what happens with Sean Payton there. But like Denver, for me, I'm still pretty iffy on them. I wouldn't bet on them going back to the playoffs, though, if I was actually putting money on it. I don't know. Is that crazy if you're a Broncos fan? Let me know if you think your team is a lock to get back there next year, or if you're not a Broncos fan. Do you think they'll get there? Why won't they get back if they end up missing the playoffs? And then after that, we have the Rams here at number 15. And for the Rams, they're a team that gets in a lot of tough games. You finally let Cooper Kupp go. It's Puka Nakua's team, so we'll see how that turns out. But the Rams should be the best team in their division. The 49ers have had a lot of injury issues. I'll take Matt Stafford and Sean McVay at this point over Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. So still think they should be the favorite to win their division. And then that's kind of halfway through with the Rams. And then we get to the top 14 toughest schedules in the league. And this is where it gets really hard because you have the Cincinnati Bengals. Their combined records opponents are 149 and 140. For the Bengals, I feel like it's going to be a really tough season because you did go out there, pay Jamar Chase here. You have Joe Burrow locked up on your team, but you still have the potential to lose your best defender. So you have to go out there, really bank on your draft paying up this year, and you have a new defensive coordinator. So we're going to find out, is Lou Anarumo the problem, or was it a lack of depth and talent on this team? So that'll be interesting for the Cincinnati Bengals. But I do think like it's always going to be in the top 14 in the top half if you're going to be in the AFC North, right? Because you always are going to have the Browns. There's still a tough team, even though they can't figure out their quarterback position. You still have Myles Garrett there, and you still have a two-time Coach of the Year there. Oddly enough, even though he has only won one playoff game, and they should have kept Baker Mayfield. But you have the Browns right above them at number 13, and then you have the Ravens and the Steelers also at 9 or 10. So everyone in the North is in the top 14. There's no avoiding playing each other. You have pretty much 6 games right away in your schedule where you're going to be playing an extremely tough opponent, probably in harsher weathers too, because it's going to be in December or January. No one wants to be in the Midwest in the winter then, unless you live there and you chose to do that. But, not everyone in the Midwest wants to be there in the winter. And then after that, at number 11, we have the Chiefs and the Chargers, and they're tied for the strength of schedule. So that's interesting because you have the Chargers up and coming here. Them and the Chiefs are both playing 151 and 138. So that'll be a good test for the Chargers. How legit is this team really? We need receiver help outside of Lad McConkey. Is that going to pan out next season? Because defensively, this team was off the charts last year. Justin Herbert had a fine year with Lad McConkey and really not much else help. And then you also have Najee Harris on that team. So I definitely am worried about the Chargers, though. If you're going to have the same strength of schedule about the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs are always going to have a tough schedule here. So that's nothing new. And I think Kansas City will be able to handle it. We all think so. And if they miss the playoffs, like, all right, they went to 3 straight Super Bowls. What more can you want for them? But I don't think anyone is betting on that except for Jason McIntyre right now. And he's never had a good take in his life. Maybe he's had one or two, but he pretty much has just benefited off of riding the coattails of Colin Cowherd at this point. And then after the Chiefs and Steelers, we already went over the Ravens, but the tough one is really going to be the Commanders here because their combined records that they're playing are going to be 159 and 130. And for a Commanders team that was really good last season, had a lot of great moments in the playoffs, that is where you're going to run into a really good test where is this team sustainable? Can you have multiple deep playoff runs year after year? Or was last year a fluke? Because we all remember Seattle got to the second round versus Atlanta, ended up losing, comes right back, and then is in the Super Bowl next year. Will that be the same for the Washington Washington Commanders? We'll see, but it is concerning that they're at number 8, going up against a combined record of 159 and 130. So we'll see what happens with the Commanders there, and then the Green Bay Packers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Minnesota Vikings are all tied at number 5 with the combined record they're going up against of 161 and 128. And Minnesota is really just, we don't know what we're getting from JJ McCarthy, but also if you can get that much out of Sam Darnold, I really do believe in Kevin O'Connell as a coach who can elevate bad quarterbacks to play really well. He got Sam Darnold paid, so Sam Darnold is now out there. And now the Minnesota Vikings with JJ McCarthy, how are they going to fare? The Dallas Cowboys now with a revamped offense where you have George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb there. Are they going to be able to stack up to the challenge, especially with a very underwhelming coaching hire? How is that going to pan out? Is it going to be same old Cowboys? But it's going to be tough because you have the Commanders and you have the Vikings and you have a Giants team without Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson. So anything can happen. So like in your division, I don't think there's going to be a ton of easy games, especially because the team with the toughest schedule is in your division. So they're going to need every single game they can get. So they're going to be desperate when they play you. And then the number 4 team is Philadelphia, the defending Super Bowl champs. And we could definitely see a Super Bowl hangover. Usually when a team gets to the Super Bowl, it's a lot of injuries that you have to deal with. And I don't necessarily think they can't get back to the Super Bowl, but unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs at this point, I feel like it's really hard to get to back-to-back Super Bowl. So I'm not going to bet on it. And the NFC East has kind of been a rotating door as far as the division winners. So we're due for either the Cowboys or Commanders to have a good year, end up winning the division next year. But the Bears and the Lions schedule being at 165, was it 165 and 124? That's going to be tough, especially for both of those teams here. The Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams, that's going to be a good test for him. You have Ben Johnson as your head coach there, but the Lions have a team that kind of was really arrogant, high flying last year, kind of feeling themselves, and hey, deservedly so, but their fans have been through a lot of pain. So the fact that their team was good, this is the best team historically that they've ever had. Like, yeah, go crazy, but does it set them up for a little bit of adversity that they're going to fight through? Absolutely. So I could see them starting the season out a little bit slow and then really finding their footing towards the second half of the season. Then you get Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery go, and then you're off to the races here. But when you have to replace your offensive and defensive coordinator, typically you do run into some hiccups there. And, you don't come out of the gate high flying right away. And same for the Chicago Bears. It may take them a couple weeks just to put it together here, especially under a new head coach. You're in some of those critical situations. You need to get on the same page and really build that rapport there. So that is the strength of schedule, according to ChatGPT. We'll see if Brick rejoins us. He's probably restarting his Wi-Fi right now. But if you just watched what I just watched right now, I just watched all of the Indiana Pacers trailing since the second quarter, since it was 45-44. And then they go down 17 points, and it doesn't matter. Every time I look up, the Pacers are a little bit closer. And I'm watching this on the tablet right now, but because we're recording, but the Pacers just come at you and they don't stop. I mean, the Knicks were up 17 points in this game. It's like no lead is big enough for this team. Halliburton is so fast, and it seems like he's always hitting the big shot when he needs to. And if you want to talk about a star being born in an elite finals matchup, how about the most valuable player versus the player voted most overrated by the NBA players? And then that could be our finals matchup. So you'd have the most valuable player versus the player that everyone thinks is weighted way too highly, and then he just hits not one, not two, but three walk-off shots so far in the playoffs, where he won a game versus the Bucks. He won a game last series versus the Cavs, and then he tied the game this time to go into overtime when it could have been a walk-off shot to win the game if his toe wasn't on the line. And then you have someone like Aaron Neesmith go off in this game and play exceptional. Miles Turner, Nemhard, just being impactful, and really the unsung hero in this game was Obi Toppin. A lot of people make fun of me when I bring up like, oh yeah, Obi Toppin, nice player on the Indiana Pacers, but Obi Toppin had some elite plays in this game where he had a huge dunk in overtime to put them up three, and then he had a play where he was blocked by OG Anunoby, grabs the ball, takes two steps, and ends up hitting a reverse layup going all the way under the basket. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous stuff from the Pacers team. And when you look at the matchup, you're like, okay, let's go player for player. You have Brunson and Halliburton. I'll take Halliburton at this point over Brunson. I know Brunson's a prolific scorer, but Brunson is a better defender, and I feel like he's just a better point guard at running the offense, where he doesn't need to take up the ball and suck the oxygen out of the entire offense to be effective, which I feel like the Knicks can fall into a little bit of trap. But after that, you look at Nemhard versus Mikal Bridges. Probably take Mikal Bridges. You look at Aaron Neesmith versus Josh Hart. That could be a toss up. You may do a coin flip, but I would take Josh Hart, but that's pretty much a wash for me. So pretty much we're even at this point with Halliburton. And then after that, though, Siakam versus Karl Anthony Towns, it's like, well, who should be the better player? It's Karl Anthony Towns. And then it's Miles Turner in this situation as well versus OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby should be better, but Karl Anthony Towns is definitely better than Miles Turner. But it's a battle of Anunoby and Siakam's. Like, I feel like the Knicks have a slight talent advantage, and then it comes down to the bench though, where you can bring in someone like McConnell, bring in someone like Obi Toppin, and then you can also bring in someone like Shepard, and they really kick it into gear off of the bench. We had Mathurin making some big plays for Indiana, and then it's like, all right, then you have to look at a finals head coach having that experience with Rick Carlisle, when really our biggest issue with the Knicks has been Tom Thibodeau over the past few years. And he's really been the one where it's like, does he burn his guys out too much? Is a Tom Thibodeau team going to be able to sustain 4 rounds in the playoffs and win, 16 games? Like, I really didn't think they can do it. I have Indiana in this series, so I don't think they can do it, but Halliburton hitting the Reggie Miller choke after this, absolutely sensational stuff, especially he's playing in the same state as Caitlin Clark, so you don't think that has a little bit of extra motivation when you're going to have someone in your state that's making an entire league relevant, let's be honest. And it's not because of her skin color, it's because she's already pretty much broken every WNBA record, and she's going to be going on a Wilt-like run in the WNBA. And then Halliburton has to see that every single day. It's like, no, you can't be an NBA team overshadowed by a WNBA team. And it seems like, in some weird way, I know it seems like a weird take, but it seems like it's motivating the Pacers at this point. And this is a really well coached team with Rick Carlisle. And I feel like this is the team that's going to get to the finals, because you're down 17 points in this game. You stayed with it. And then you get to overtime and win when you hadn't led since the second quarter. So Indiana and New York, I feel like this series is probably going to go 6, and Indiana is going to win in Indiana, but should be a really good series here. So I'm really excited to see how this one plays out. And then we also had the game the other night between the Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I feel like with that game, to be honest, um, yeah, I missed when I was live too. Is the internet not working? Brick's internet versus the world. Oh, there he is. He's back.
There he is. I saw my I had to chime in. Internet hates me. Clearly, I can't say anything too controversial, or the deep state will silence me. But I am
It was
hopefully
George
back for the long
Lucas.
term. Yeah, I talked shit about George Lucas and his shitty dialogue, and ever since I have not recovered. But let's hope that this works. I booted it up, and I heard you were talking about the Pacers, which I saw that they came back from 15 points down. Halliburton hit a
17.
buzzer
Yeah.
beater to go to overtime, and then they shocked the Knicks.
Yeah. That should have been a walk-off too because his toe was on the line. I looked over at the tablet and what do I see? Another image of Halliburton like this doing the Reggie Miller to the Knicks. And then you have all of this buildup in this series, which got me so excited, where you have the WWE event where Halliburton's with Logan Paul, and then Jalen Brunson is there, and they end up getting in the ring with each other. You have the bad blood from last year where New York thought they should have won if Tom Thibodeau didn't kill their entire team by playing them 48 minutes a game. And then you have this where you don't lead since 45 to 44 in the second quarter. You come back from a 17-point deficit. You've been down now three times in the playoffs with 1 minute left and won 3 of those games. And then you're down 5 with 35 seconds and you come back and end up winning this game. Like, Tyrese Halliburton is absolutely ridiculous. And I was saying the finals matchup is going to be the most valuable player versus the player that everyone shit on right before the playoffs. Tyrese Halliburton, the guy who's voted as the most overrated player in the league. Like, really, seems like the best point guard in the league and the only point guard that actually knows how to run an offense at this point.
Yeah, you know what this Pacers team reminds me of? They kind of remind me of the 2019 Raptors a little bit,
That's
where
what I thought.
yeah, like I feel like Halliburton's going on like a Kawhi level run right now, where it doesn't seem like they're ever out of these games. I saw the score with like a minute left, and they were down by 12, and then bang, bang, bang. Next thing you know, they tie the game. They go to overtime, and they shock the Knicks. And then also like looking at that team, it's less about like one individual star and more about just a cohesive unit, because you're also seeing like Pascal Siakam make some big plays. You're seeing Miles Turner step up when he needs to. You have Nimhard, you have Toppin, you have DJ O'Connell. Like, all of these players are pitching in. You're getting a full 8-man, 9-man roster. And I don't know, there's just something about teams like this. I feel like they're a team of destiny. Would I be shocked to see the Pacers upset the Thunder? No. And honestly, I can see them honestly winning the finals potentially, especially if they're going to come back from 14 down. What was a team back in the 2010s that were always down? Didn't matter how big the lead was. They were down 15. They could get it back within a minute. The Warriors. I'm not saying this team's the Warriors, but I think that this is a team of destiny, I feel like. And I feel like they're bound for the finals at this point.
Yeah, especially like, do you remember? I think we watched the first Celtics game, and it took like Jaylen Brown hitting a ridiculous shot in the corner to send it to overtime. Then the Celtics ended up taking care of business, but Halliburton missed 2 games in that series, and that series could have easily gone 6 or 7. And now he's taken another step forward this year. And then say what you will about the guy, but Obi Toppin made some huge plays in this game. Whether it's defensively, he had a play where OG Anunoby blocked a 3-point shot. He got the block, and then he just did 2 steps. He did a reverse where he was behind the backboard and just spun it off. And like he had a dunk in overtime that put them up 3. So you just have some of these really athletic guys who can play fast. You have a championship coach, and then also you can't be the only NBA team overshadowed by a WNBA team. So that has to help, right? Because when you have Caitlin Clark in the same city as you, like, you don't think Halliburton's like, damn, I gotta step the fuck up because I can't be the second best basketball player in my town to a woman. Like, no disrespect, but there is a stigma around guys, and we all know this. So it's like, I feel like with the Indiana Pacers, like, we can't let the fever outshine us. What is this?
Yeah, and they're not. I mean, Halliburton today, he had 31, 4, and 11. Had only 2 turnovers. He crushed it. He made obviously the biggest shot of the entire game, forcing it to overtime, coming back from 15 down. So at this point, Halliburton's the best player in Indiana by far right now. But Caitlin Clark, I mean, she's not making it easy for him either. I sent this to you prior to the show, but she has already the most triple doubles. In WNBA history, and she has the most 20 point, 10 assist games already. She did it through 41 games, where the next closest person did it in over 500 games. So she's going to be the one that's breaking all the WNBA records ultimately. And she is going to go down as I think she already could go down as the greatest WNBA player of all time already.
Yeah, and I feel like that's definitely fair, especially like it'd be like as a rookie if LeBron James broke the triple double record, who he was the chosen one coming into it, and you had this dialogue around um, Caitlin Clark coming into it. And I know Ryan Clark thinks that Angel Reese made her a star, but I think it was really her talent and just being the best at a specific thing. I don't think it was Angel Reese like trying to fight her during the college playoffs. I really don't. And then the foul too, like it just seemed like a regular foul. It didn't seem like there was any malicious intent. It was like a I don't like you, let me foul you hard. And honestly, I feel like the WNBA should be like a little bit more scrappy and have more fights if you want to make it entertaining. Like if you can't score and you don't have skills, you got to fight, guys.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I feel like Angel Reese has a certain part of the WNBA. I know a lot of people criticize her dribbling, and her shooting and everything else. And maybe she's not as talented as Caitlin Clark, skill wise, but I feel like she is also helping the WNBA like bolster their brand, and she brings a certain intensity, kind of similar to like what a Draymond Green does for the Warriors. Where I think she's somebody that's going to talk a lot of trash, and she's going to be good for the league too. So I'm glad that she's a part of this, and I hope that there's a rivalry. I just don't think it's very close skill wise as far as who's the better player. Like it's obviously Caitlin Clark. I think Caitlin
Yeah.
Clark is one of the few WNBA players, so I think could actually play in the NBA. If you put the thing with Caitlin Clark is she's an exceptional shooter, and I feel like shooters are the most transferable to the other league. Like if she were to play in the NBA, I think that she would still be successful. I don't think she's Caitlin Clark putting up record numbers, but I think that she's still somebody that could be a rotational player on a playoff team and be successful.
No, or she'd be in the
Uh,
NBA, first of all. And then we all took seventh grade biology, so we all know that's not true. I hope you're not
but
serious.
she's shooting threes though. I think when it comes to shooting threes, it's a mental thing. I think she could easily still be a shooter in this league. I could see her being like a Duncan Robinson. Yeah, I know she's not as physical as Anthony Edwards and SGA, but playing in the NBA, I still also think that there's role players that can still exist who aren't going to be as physical as these other players. And I think that she still could be a shooter in this league and be perfectly fine.
I don't think she'd even stand a chance if she played someone like Phil Pressey. I think this is an entire just genetic thing where she's like 6 foot, that's fine, but she wouldn't be able to get a shot off in the NBA, and then she'd just be a turnstile on defense, where it'd just be a joke. Like I don't know. I just don't see it at all.
I can see her being an NBA player, but we disagree on that regard. But either way,
Yeah, we
what she's
disagree
doing
on
in the
science.
WNBA is impressive to see, and I hope it continues to grow the league.
But it's like when the women's soccer like team for the US, they lost to a middle school men's team. And they're the best in the country. And they lost to a middle school team from Texas.
I'm saying Caitlin Clark can be a shooter in this league. Like she could go to the NBA and shoot threes from the corner and be a successful role player in that regard. I'm not saying she's going to be an MVP player, but I think she could go in the NBA, stand in the corner and shoot threes and be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that that's fair to say.
If you skip science, it's fair to say.
Well, shooters shoot. That's all I know.
Shooters do shoot. It's true.
Yeah, let's laugh about it. It's hilarious. Anyways, what's next?
So we were in the middle of the strength of schedule. We can finish that after, but let's just move over to the Thunder series. So we were talking about that before, and so the Thunder end up eliminating the Nuggets. That happened since we were talking last time. Really, the entire argument has just been around SGA getting foul calls. And I've never seen one star be like solely focused in on with foul calls where it's everyone's complaining about it. I'm like, did we not watch LeBron play in 2010? Like, I was a frustrated middle schooler too who was furious every time the Celtics or any team would play LeBron because it seemed like the refs, not only was LeBron one of the best players in the league, not named Kobe Bryant or Tim Duncan, but it seemed like the refs were also trying to help him. He would say shit like, I'm the best player in the world. I don't foul out when he fouled out, and they ended up losing in overtime versus Boston. So it's like I feel like we've seen this before, and I didn't have the same amount of outrage with LeBron James, but now people are just randomly deciding to target SGA. Like I don't understand. And then Anthony Edwards is still like in the conversation. Like this guy needs to be the face of the league. Like SGA averaged 30 this year and had the best record in the West and won the MVP. Like he has 12 free throw attempts per game, which is 228th all time in the NBA record book. Like this is an astronomical amount of free throws. The same thing is going on right now with Jalen Brunson. Like every single player in the league tries to bait you for fouls. Did we not watch James Harden?
Yeah, I think James Harden was a much more extreme example. I honestly think even Jalen Brunson's a more extreme example. Yeah, he gets to the free throw line, but he also is hitting at, let me look, he's hitting at 50% free throws, 50% field goal percentage this year. He's been an efficient shooter as well. Like he can still hit his shots too. Like it's not like he's just only getting his points from the line. So I do think that the hate is a little overblown for SGA. He has been one of the more efficient scorers in the league the last 2 years, and that's why I think he's deserving of the MVP. Even though I do think that Nikola Jokic was more valuable to his team, but for a guy like him, like similar to Harden, where he was losing to Steph in the 2016 NBA MVP race, or Russell Westbrook's averaging a triple double. Let's give it to him. I feel like SGA is also deserving of being an MVP in this league. So I don't really have a problem with it, even if I don't think that he was the most valuable player. I still think you bring a team to 68 wins, some of the most wins in NBA history. I think that I can't really argue with him winning MVP. Like I still think he's well deserving of it. And I also don't agree with him being a free throw merchant either, like with everything you mentioned.
Yeah, and like, does he try and bait people into fouls? Yeah. Does he have ridiculous expressions and flop? Yes. Every single NBA star in the league does it, and I honestly find like Jalen Brunson a lot harder to watch with what he does. Every time Brunson turns the corner, he throws his head back, and I'm not defending flopping, but at the same time, it's like there's like different standards. It feels like so like randomly NBA fans will be like, all right, it's time to attack Jason Tatum. It's time to attack Shea Gildress Alexander, like seemingly for no reason. Like, does he wear outfits you don't like and you think are weird? Sure, I don't have a problem with it. But like for me, like you're just gonna take the opportunity to shit on one of the best players in the league right now who just won MVP. And also the difference is the Thunder. It would be one thing if the Thunder were barely beating teams and SGA was being a free throw merchant, and that's why they were winning games. But the Knicks, on the other hand, are barely beating teams, and Jalen Brunson seems like he's getting every single call at the end of the game trying to flop and get fouls, where the Thunder are absolutely wasting people and destroying teams. Like when they beat a team, they beat the hell out of them, and then he's also like winning close games as well. But it's not coming down to free throw attempts. It's coming down to him and Jalen Williams just being a better duo than anyone else in the league right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then, another thing, like if you're somebody who's going to handle the bar as much as he does, and we talk about this with Halliburton as well, I feel like another indicator of determining, how efficient they are is how often are they turning the ball over? How often are they getting burned on defense? And I feel like in SGA's case, like in the blowout game against the Nuggets, where I felt like the Nuggets were just exhausted by the end of it. 2 turnovers, but he did also have 35 points. And then, 12 of 19 from the field. He was efficient in that regard. And then in game one, he also, 31 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, only 2 turnovers. Where you look at someone like Jalen Brunson, and I like Jalen Brunson, I'm not here to pick on him, but in game one, he did have 7 turnovers. And, when it comes to points off of turnovers, I'll look at the Pacers numbers here, but I think when you lose a game by 3 points and you have 7 turnovers, and points off of turnovers for the Pacers equate to what would have ultimately been a win for you, like I can't not look at that ultimately, because the Pacers had 7 turnovers in this game. Knicks had 15, what resulted in 27 points off of their turnovers. So, I mean, that much of a pendulum swing, 23-point differential turnover wise, like, no. I think there's more to blame there. And Jalen Brunson played a great game, but 7 turnovers compared to 2, like, that's the difference there, I think. You're comparing someone like SGA to Jalen Brunson, or, James Harden to Russell Westbrook. There's levels to this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like SGA may very well win a ring this year, and he's going to be one of the few stars to actually do that in the modern NBA. It'd be him, Tatum, Giannis, Jokic. That would really just be the guys of the new era here going out there and winning it. But it's like SGA gets shit on, no one talks about him, but then you still have people trying to push the Timberwolves and push Anthony Edwards as the face of the league, and he doesn't even score a point in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this game, I do think that the Timberwolves will bounce back, but that's not a good sight. I think the thing with the Timberwolves, you look at the success of the Thunder. It's been Jalen Williams, SGA. Chet has played pretty well as well. Hartenstein as well. But for the Timberwolves, it feels like their success has been on Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert. Julius Randle, I mean, he's had somewhat of a resurrection playoff wise. We talked about when we previewed the playoffs our concerns with him. He's played excellent to this point, kind of resurrected his playoff persona. But I think the part of the reason why that they were in this game for as long as they were was because Julius Randle played well. He had 28 points, 8 rebounds, but Anthony Edwards didn't have a great shooting night. Only scored 18 points. As somebody who's going to be the face of your franchise, or really the face of the league, like I feel like you're going to need to step up more. And I think he will maybe this next game, but you're going to step up more, especially when it comes to the Thunder.
Yeah, and two, like for me with the Timberwolves, like they played who's in front of them and won, but if everyone was gonna do this with the Celtics last year, it's like, oh well, they beat a team with their best player injured. Like, well, you beat the Lakers in the first round who only had five players that they could play. And LeBron James at 40 had a sprained knee and was playing the entire fourth quarter, and they let Rudy Gobert somehow be effective on offense. And then you have the Warriors where Steph Curry's killing you in game one. He gets hurt. You win the next four games there. It's like the Timberwolves have not been challenged at all in the playoffs. And now they're actually going up against a legitimate team. And for me, the Thunder just look overwhelming when you played them. And they have all playoffs where the Nuggets, like I had faith in Jokic because he's the best player in the series, but deep down I knew the Thunder were the better team. And guess what? The Thunder were my pick to go to the finals before the Warriors got Jimmy Butler. And hey, anything could have happened if Steph Curry was healthy. But like now I'm back to my pick before the season, and the reason is because you pick up someone like Caruso and Hartenstein, and then anytime a play breaks down or you need someone wide open in the paint, Hartenstein is just open. He's able to do that little floater there, and he's a big man who can actually score. And then you don't need Chet to do too much. You just need like 15 to 18 points from him. But the other Jalen Williams has been playing well off the bench as well. Then Jalen Williams, who starts for you, has taken that next leap this year where he's a legitimate playmaker, scorer, defender, and passer. And, SGA on and off the court plays both ways. So that also goes in his favor.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Thunder, much more of an intimidating presence. I feel like this will be the real challenge for the Timberwolves if they want to make it past and make it to the NBA Finals. But the Thunder, I think the biggest acquisitions for them has been Caruso, who played great in the Nugget series, helped somewhat contain Jokic a little bit, and then Hartenstein, adding him, stealing him from the Knicks. Knicks are definitely going to miss his presence this upcoming playoff series with the Pacers. But those two acquisitions, I feel like those two guys have been the missing pieces for them. Last year, obviously, they had their struggles in the playoffs a little bit, didn't quite live up to expectations. Those two guys have elevated them. Caruso's been super effective for him. And then Hartenstein, obviously, being a 7-footer and doing what he can do in the paint. I think the Thunder, they're bound for the NBA. And honestly, I think they'll probably win the title, although I do think the Pacers will be frisky for them.
Yeah, no, the Pacers are definitely going to be a tough out there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with both those teams there. And then we saw the Nuggets go down here, and then Aaron Gordon plays in Game 7 with a grade 2 hamstring strain, and he couldn't even run up and down the court, but he was still out there laying it all out on the line. But like, shout out to the Nuggets, another good season. Unable to do it this year, but Michael Porter literally said before the season, he's like, yeah, we know if we don't win the title this year, this team's probably not gonna be reunited this year. So with the Nuggets, could you see like anything and everything being on the table? Like we're trading Jamal Murray and Jokic, or do you think we're just gonna try and keep Jokic and then everyone else can go essentially?
Well, I don't think they're going to bring back Christian Braun. I believe he's a free agent, and he's going to be demanding 30 million based on reports that I'm seeing here. I think that they can consider looking at trading Jamal Murray, see if they can get someone to pair with Jokic. And then I would trade Michael Porter. I think Michael Porter, he went from a guy that showed a lot of promise. Obviously, he came in a little injured, so he fell in the draft a little bit. But Michael Porter went from a guy that I believed could develop into a solid star to now I think he's Kyle Kuzma, ultimately. Super inconsistent. He's big, but like, I just don't know what I'm going to get from Michael Porter in a given night. So if I'm the Nuggets, I package Michael Porter and maybe Jamal Murray and try to get a legitimate number two behind Jokic. Keep Aaron Gordon if you can. Maybe you bring Russ back on a league minimum deal. But otherwise, like, I think you do need to retool a little bit, save some cap money potentially. Let Christian Braun walk. Let somebody else pay Christian Braun $30 million because I think he's solid, but I think you can replace him otherwise. Keep Jokic, and then everybody else, they can ultimately go.
Yeah, and we'll see. Because I think, you could package like Jamal Murray and Michael Porter for someone like either probably like Franz Wagner or someone like maybe like Paulo there. I could see the Celtics doing a deal maybe if they want to get off Drew Holiday's contract where they trade package Holiday and you get Aaron Gordon back and then another guard there. So I feel like Aaron Gordon could be a big fit, especially with Al getting older, and then you flip, Porzingis to Phoenix, and then you get back like Grayson Allen and another ball handler in a three-team deal.
Yeah, I think the Celtics have a lot of tools to be doing. Um, and so, like, whether it's not they're going to get rid of Drew Holiday, Porzingis, I've heard some talks about Jalen Brown potentially being in that mix as well. Ultimately, Tatum looks like he's the only untouchable player for the Celtics. Celtics just have so many salaries that they're going to have to get rid of that I think it's inevitable that we're going to see Drew Holiday get flipped. We're going to see Porzingis get flipped. And then Al
Yeah.
Horford, if he comes back, he's going to have to take a pay cut, most likely.
Yeah, and he is coming back, and I could definitely see him take a pay cut because if he's not going to play for Boston and contend for a title, like really, where is he going to play? I've seen one trade idea that sends Porzingis and Drew Holiday to Phoenix for Kevin Durant, and then pair him with Derek White, Jalen Brown. But you definitely have to get off Porzingis this year because his stats fell in half. And let's be honest, this guy will never stay healthy, has never stayed healthy in his career here. So we'll see what happens with good old Tingus Pingus. But I don't want him back on Boston next year because it's like when he plays really well, he's great, but that's not that often. And he's not reliable enough in the playoffs. And we've seen 2 years of this now. And I think it's time to move on. Where the guy get the flu and 2 months later, he's like, oh, I can't breathe.
Now, Clay, he's asking in the chat here, what are the chances that the Warriors get Kevin Durant in the offseason? I think the chances are zero because they have Jimmy Butler, they have Steph. I think with the tensions that they've had with Steve Kerr and Draymond, I just don't think that's going to happen. It would be exciting. I mean, it'd be fun to watch. Obviously, that was such a great era with the Warriors, but chances are with their cap situation, with Kevin Durant, does he want to go back to Golden State? I just don't see it happening. But Clay, if you have any questions, feel free to ping us some more and we'll answer your questions. But I see Kevin Durant potentially being packaged. I can see him like we talked about the Rockets a couple of times. I see that being a possibility. Maybe he goes to San Antonio on a cheaper deal as well. But I just I don't know where Kevin Durant really fits because you're going to want to put him with a young team um, that you can ultimately be the mentor for, but also still contend. I just don't know how many teams are going to be the right fit for it. I just don't know how many people are going
Maybe
to
the
work.
Knicks if he wants to go back to New York and try it again and actually go the right team this time. If you reunite Bridges back in Phoenix, like that was awkward, but
I'm sure Phoenix
they
wouldn't
did
mind that.
trade 5 first-round picks for Mikael Bridges for me, which is wild for a guy who, for me, he's like a really, 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 really good role player who could be a third star, but probably not because he was a third star in Phoenix and they didn't win.
Yeah, I liked him better personally in Brooklyn. Like, as soon as he went to Brooklyn, I feel like he played really well, and I think that's what caused him to give up so many picks. But I honestly, I never liked that trade to begin with. But Mikal Bridges, I think if you're going to package anybody with the Knicks, I think Mikal Bridges is obvious. Or if you're going to get Giannis, package Karl Anthony Towns with him. But other than that, I just don't see. I just don't know where Kevin Durant's going to fit. He's not quite. He's not the same Kevin Durant that we had in the late 2010s. So it's going to be an awkward fit.
Yeah, maybe Dallas or Cleveland. I could see him like fitting on Cleveland, oddly enough, but I don't think he'd want to live there. But I could see Dallas. It's like if you want to align everyone on their timeline and get younger. Do I think Jonathan Kaminga will get traded? Absolutely. Jonathan
Yes.
Kaminga is useless. He's the new Tony Snow.
Oh God. Yeah. I think Kaminga again. The Warriors are going to make a move this offseason. Where they go, I'm not sure, but I think Jonathan Kaminga will definitely be dealt. Maybe, if honestly, if the Warriors want to make a big move, maybe they make a swing for Giannis and get a big man. But Kaminga would be a part of that package most likely. And then I just don't know how they make the salaries work. But Kaminga 100% is going to get traded in the offseason.
Yeah, apparently they're like he was passing up looks to Steph Curry. It's like, no, you don't pass up shots for Steph. Like you're obviously gonna get traded after that happens.
Yeah, and plus they didn't play him the entire playoffs for the most part. Like that seems like the writing's on the wall there. They've given him chances. I just don't think it's going to work out.
We've also been waiting like 4 years for him to develop too.
Yeah. And I know development nowadays in the NBA is a little bit slower because people are coming right out of college these days with the 1 years. But I just think at this point you should see more from a guy like him to know for sure, especially with the draft capital you spent on him. But um, lovely questions. Keep them coming. But that's what we think is going down here in the NBA. I know I missed like 20 minutes because my internet just took a giant shit. But what's next on the docket?
Yeah, so you missed like 20 minutes there. I went through the rest of the teams, but we can go back through that. But yeah, as far as the NBA there, we both have the Thunder and the Pacers in the finals.
That's what I'm rooting for, I think. Like the Timberwolves, I like Anthony Edwards, so I wouldn't hate to see him in the finals. But if I'm talking like logically, who's the better team? It's the Thunder, obviously. And then I just think the Pacers are a team of destiny. Like I think about like the Heat teams that made it to the finals with Jimmy Butler, and then I think about the 2019 Raptors. Like this is the kind of team that it reminds me of, where there's a lot of
Yeah.
really good players, and ultimately they're the ones that are going to make the move.
Yeah, they feel like very Bengals-esque too. Like Halliburton's their Joe Burrow. It's crazy that people thought he was the most overrated player in the league, though. Like
I
it should
never
be
believed
Rudy
that.
Gobert every year.
Yeah, I never thought for a second that that was going to be what would happen. And I also think like a question I was thinking about because the Pacers making it to two consecutive conference finals, that's a great accomplishment. But what ultimately matters is making the finals. And I feel like especially the modern NBA with what the way they've adjusted the salary cap and everything else, making it harder for teams to win back to back. We haven't seen it since the Warriors with Kevin Durant. I feel like making the finals now is also an accomplishment. Jimmy Butler making two finals with the Heat is an accomplishment. With Halliburton making the finals, would you kind of put? I would put it up there personally with Jimmy Butler bringing the Heat to the finals with that roster. The Pacers, I think, are a little bit of a better roster overall, but him making the finals, I feel like that should give him some sort of pedigree in the NBA, making the finals with this team that they have.
Yeah, I think it does. Like definitely, I don't think this team is like I think that every player on this team is really good at defense, and they can all hit threes. They can all run here, but like, is this one of the greatest teams of all time? Like, no, I don't think so. So I do think what he's doing right now is really impressive because you look at these super teams. It was Steph, Clay, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green. Like they were stacked top to bottom. Then you would have the you would also have LeBron, where he's hand picking stars side by side to go with him, where he needs two all stars, where he's going to have a meltdown and says he doesn't have enough help. Where when you have someone like Giannis get there, which is Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, then you have someone like Halliburton who can potentially get to the finals, where his second best players are Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. And then you have Nemhard and Neesmith in the starting lineup. Like he just knows how to play basketball the right way. And I think if he gets to the finals and they end up winning it, he should definitely be considered a top five player in the league because he plays both sides of the ball. And the thing that he doesn't do that is different from him and someone like Luka Doncic is suck the entire energy out of the offense where he doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. And then he knows when he needs to score and he knows when he needs to pass.
Absolutely. Clayton also asks, Clayton's got a bunch of questions for us. I appreciate you, Clayton. Make sure to subscribe to us. He asks the chances of the Sixers trading Joel Embiid. According to reports, him and Paul George are staying together. If I'm the Sixers, though, with a guy who's played, 30% of his games the last 3 years, if I'm the Sixers, you have the third overall pick, I would consider trading him because I definitely think there's still a market there for him. And the more he gets hurt, the worse his market is going to be. So I would look at a team like maybe Orlando wants to make a jump because they've been kind of like a first round team the last few years. Look at a team like them or a team that desperately needs a big man. Like I think the Lakers are always in contention for something like that. Those are the teams I look at immediately and think, let's make a package for
Charlotte.
Joel Embiid and see what happens.
Yeah, can you pair LaMelo Ball and Tyrese Maxey? Because like last season, I said you should trade Joel Embiid right now because I don't think he'll have another amazing season. And I thought last year kind of felt like the end of his deep playoff runs, unless he goes to a team that's absolutely stacked. But he'd have to sign there in free agency with the amount of assets they'd have to give up to get him, which is what people don't realize. It's like, okay, I'm going to trade for an all star, but I had to give up my future over the next few years, and it's not guaranteed to pan out. So, like with the Sixers, I thought they should have traded him last year, but all the reports I'm seeing is that they're potentially going to trade the pick that they got and Tyrese Maxey, and then make a team around Paul George and Joel Embiid, which is the worst possible case scenario, but is the most 76ers scenario to do. It's like, all right, here's some dialogue straight out of Attack of the Clones. Now give it to your GM.
Yeah, no, that's a horrible. I mean, Paul George showed you last year that he's lost his touch. He's not the same player he was with Indiana or LA. And now I just think the third overall pick is a chance for you to get out of your old regime, right? The trust the process. If I'm them, we've gone over the trust the process already. Make sure to check those out. But the trust the process has failed miserably. And Joel Embiid's really the last semblance of that process. Sixers, get out of that era, get rid of Joel Embiid. And, he's also missing practice. He's also complaining about the refs and everything else. Like, I feel like the city of Philly is also starting to turn on Joel Embiid. So I think it's time that we ultimately uh, just get rid of that experiment in the Sixers and hope for them. Hopefully, he turns out somewhere else and does better, and stays healthy. But I just don't see it working out there anymore.
Yeah. Shout out Clay for subbing. We appreciate that. Appreciate all the
Thank you.
questions as well. But yeah, it'll be an interesting NBA offseason because I think we'll see a lot of stars move here. And then the real, I guess, dialogue in conversation that I've seen when I've been in the gym early in the morning on ESPN is just, uh, do you think it's good or bad for the league that we don't have dynasties? And I think what they're referring to is, we see these great teams all time. So when you see a team like the Bucks win a title, when you see the Pacers and Knicks and the Timberwolves and Thunder in the conference championship, people look at it almost like a little illegitimately. With my pushback on that would be, did you watch the Michael Jordan era where I felt like it felt more similar to this, where you'd have like a Reggie Miller, some pretty good role players on a team, and then hey, we're going toe to toe. It's the best star versus the best star on the other team, and usually the best player on the best team will end up coming out on top. And people are just kind of looking at the league this year, and it seems like everyone is good, but there's not like a dynamic dominant team. So some people have some pushbacks. Like maybe it is more interesting when you have two dynasties going, but like for me, like that just discourages other teams in the league to want to be good, because now you can actually look at the league like, okay, maybe there actually is a chance for Orlando if we can get a player or two. Where if you just see the Warriors, it's like the entire NBA gave up for like 5 years.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's good for the league to have dynasties, but to an extent, like the Warriors were so dominant, and the league was basically just LeBron and the Warriors for what felt like a decade, but really it was like 5, 6 years, where the teams that ultimately were contending were just basically it was the Warriors, the Thunder, the LeBron era team, and then the Rockets. And then everybody else did not matter. Every single team knew that they were going to lose to whoever they ran into eventually. And so, like, it ultimately ruined the league for a little bit because of it. That being said, though, like, if we go back to the 2000s, like, seeing those battles with the Spurs and Lakers, I think was good for the league. And seeing, like, teams win a bunch of titles. We're seeing it with the Chiefs in the NFL. Like having a villain of the league is also important, and I don't know if this league has a villain yet. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I would say that I think it's better when there is a dynasty in the NBA historically, like the Showtime Lakers, like the '80s Celtics, like Michael Jordan's era. But I also think that nowadays, when we do see that next dynasty, it's going to be more impressive than what we've seen in previous years, where we get Kevin Durant, we get Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, we get, Shaq and Kobe paired together. Like, it's going to be more impressive now.
Yeah, because it's not even like it went from like the Warriors to it felt like it was going to be a bunch of duos, right? We had Jamal Murray and Jokic, Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, LeBron and AD, Luca and Seth Curry at the time, and then you also had like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. So it's kind of like Kawhi and Paul George. So you had like all these CJ and Dame. You had all these duos across the league, and now it's like each team has like one really good player and a really good team around them. Is like, tell me the second star on the Timberwolves. I'll wait. Like
Yeah.
Julius
I mean,
Randle is an all star, but like,
I wouldn't put him as a number two historically. I think the benefit of having what we're in this era now is to think about how great the first round was and think about how bad the first round was a decade ago when it didn't matter who the Cavs were facing or who the Warriors were facing until really the conference finals before anything was good. I'm looking at the conference like just the first round this current year. Like, yeah, we knew the Thunder were going to be fine, the Cavs, the Celtics were going to be fine, but then like Nuggets Clippers was a great series. We saw Golden State versus the Rockets. That was a great series. Pacers, that was a really fun series for them. Knicks and Pistons was like the best of the entire round. And
the
then
best five
second
game
round,
series.
yeah. And then second round, that intensified as well. We didn't have as many game sevens, but we saw Thunder and Nugget. So I just feel like we're gonna have maybe less of a dynasty, which might impact like who's the villain, who's not. But we're gonna have better playoffs because of it. It's gonna be more like the like Sweet 16 bracket rather than what we've seen before. We're gonna have better playoff runs because of it.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Stephen A. Smith is a basketball expert, and he said that the Villanova team who won the title, they don't have any NBA players. It'd be really unfortunate if they're all really good and on his team.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think overall, I think it's good for the league to have dynasties, but the way the league is constructed now, let's see who the next dynasty is. As Clayton mentioned in the comments as well, like the Thunder are really young. They could win a title this year and still be very much poised to win multiple titles in the next couple of years with SGA. And then, the Celtics, I know they have to retool a little bit, but the Celtics still have Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. They should be good for a while. The Knicks have done a good job constructing their team. They should be good for a while. Lakers with Luca, they should be good for a little bit longer. Warriors still have some legs to their dynasty as well. So I think it's still a little early for everything. We've just been in a bit of a transition era in the NBA a little bit.
Yeah, and transition areas are always tough, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do feel like it's like kind of good when a dynasty comes up every once in a while, but I don't think it's good to have a dynasty all the time. So I feel like that's the problem with most of these shows is you'll have an argument and you're like not allowed to have any nuance because it's a bad take if we don't disagree for no reason.
Yeah. I just think looking at like the NFL, I think the NFL does a great job because we had the Patriots dynasty of 20 years, and that was incredibly impressive. And then now we're seeing it with the Chiefs, like seeing how much the Chiefs have just dominated the league the last decade. I think it's good to have one villain, but again, now we're seeing teams like the the Chargers and the Raiders and the Broncos like starting to get their grasp again. Like I don't know, I just feel like it's better when they're ultimately there's parity in the league.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because they did have a member of the cast of Ted 2 on Impulsive, Tom Brady, and he said he got knocked out at one point during the Falcons game, and he played the last half of the fourth quarter in overtime on autopilot. He said he doesn't remember anything that happened. I don't know if you saw that clip, but he's like, I'm pretty sure I got a concussion during that game, and then the rest of the game I was just on autopilot, and I didn't know what was going on or where I was the entire time.
I didn't hear about that, but that's insane. Just the fact that he just was unconscious. And then I did hear him kind of talk about like how he just ultimately it was just one score at a time that ultimately got them back into that game. But talk about like maybe the greatest game of all time, ultimately.
Yeah, probably the greatest Super Bowl of all time. I mean, a 28-3 comeback is pretty ridiculous. And then, yeah, I think Bill Belichick is engaged now. Shout out to Bill.
Good for you know what I've been doing recently, and I get a kick out of anytime I comment anything on my personal account, I just feel like I'm talking to the ether. But I just like I follow Jordan Hudson on Instagram, and I'll just like she'll post something, I'll just be like, "Good for Bill." And last few posts, she's liked the comments, so Jordan Hudson knows I exist, which is cool. But I'll just
Hell
comment
yeah.
"Good for Bill" or "Bill's retirement's going well" or something like that. Like just comment about Bill works every time.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I watched a show on Netflix called The Four Seasons with Steve Carell. It's
Hmm.
kind of like it's almost like a similar concept where he's just like a unhappy guy, like either in his late 50s, probably early 60s, and he's just like, I'm not happy. My daughter's in college now, so I'm gonna leave my wife. And it's essentially this friend. It follows this friend group who goes. They go on like vacations. So there's like one couple, there's a gay couple, and then Steve Carell and his wife, and he ends up divorcing her. And then the next vacation they're like on a beach and it's his new girlfriend. She's like a 28-year-old orthodontist, like super hot, and he like brings her and has her plan like an entire vacation. But it's a pretty funny show. I'm like, this is pretty relevant though, I feel like, to modern society.
It's definitely modern for Bill Belichick. I mean, good lord, what he's been able to accomplish with that. Everyone's wondering like, what is he getting out of it? I'm like, what are you talking? What isn't he getting out of it? This is amazing. Good
Yeah.
for him. Good for. I mean, Jordan's obviously benefited too. She's built her real estate empire because of it. I think her family business is resurrected from bankruptcy from it. Like they both are benefiting well, either financially or physically from it.
Yeah, and two, it's like he's someone who's at this point, like if he lost all his money, it wouldn't matter because he lives at his job anyways. He would just live on UNC campus watching film and sleep in his office. Like I feel like Bill Belichick is one of those guys. Like he could be happy just sleeping in his van or camper as long as he could watch film here. And he's coaching the UNC as kind of his retirement job, but like bro's pretty much in his 70s now. I think he's gonna be 80 soon. Like he's living his
675.
best life. Like I support this. Like holy, if like you can do this, like absolutely go for it.
Yeah, and I hope that UNC ends up succeeding because it'll be a few years because UNC's a very far away before they are where they should be. But competing in the ACC in college football, it's not as competitive as it is like with an SEC. So I definitely think the path to success there, especially with the pedigree that he has in the NFL, I think it's going to work. Especially with Jordan by his side, like keeping him young a little bit. I think we give him like 2 years. I think they'll be relatively successful in the ACC.
Yeah. And then people like saying, "Oh, what's Bill Belichick getting out of it?" You know exactly what, and you're just projecting because you're jealous, and we all know it, and it's okay.
That's okay.
But
But
speaking of getting paid, speaking of pedigree or perdigree, as they call it, when they're trying to make a pun for a bad headline on an article, Brock Purdy got paid, or as some retards like to call him, Brock Purdy, $265 million, $181 million guaranteed, and then the casual meltdown from everyone, like, how could you pay Mr. Irrelevant, came out. But overall, taking a step back, having a few days to process it, what were your thoughts when you saw this, and what are your thoughts currently on how you think it will affect the 49ers' future?
so a couple of things. When I first saw it, 265 million, that's a lot of money for Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is ultimately like borderline maybe number 10 quarterback in the league, but he has also brought his team to a Super Bowl. His team has been successful. They made it to multiple NFC title games. So, looking at the contract, 180 million guaranteed, which breaks down to 36 million annually. It's not completely a mess, I would say. I think they're going to be fine. What's going to ultimately happen is they're going to have to get rid of people like, Christian McCaffrey might need to move on, or George Kittle or Fred Warner. Like, they're not going to be able to pay all these guys that they've been paying top dollar for, which is why I think we saw Debo Samuel walk out the door this offseason. But ultimately we haven't seen Brock Purdy with as bad of a roster. If he can still overcome them, I do think Brock Purdy is one of those guys. He's shown that he does have some dog in him. He's shown that he can perform when it matters most. So in the NFL, with how bad the quarterbacks can possibly be and how hard it is to find your franchise guy, Brock Purdy, I think, is a good enough quarterback that they're going to be afloat. I think they'll still be a playoff team. Do I think it's a bit of an overpay? I guess. But I also think that having a franchise quarterback in the NFL is going to cost you $50 million these days, just with the markets. And honestly, he's getting paid, I believe, the seventh or eighth most highest in the league now. Um, I don't think it's going to burn the 49ers like the way they're projecting it on the major networks. That contract is more than manageable. They can pay him a bunch up front and then figure out if they want to keep him down the road. But I honestly, I'm pretty indifferent on this contract. I think that what's ultimately going to happen is they'll have to make some tough decisions down the road. But Brock Purdy is a solid quarterback, and so I don't hate it. I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing when you look at this contract, like $265 million, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But at the same time, he's someone who has led his team to a conference championship 2 times now. And then he is also someone in 2023. He achieved a 113 passer rating, which led the league in the NFL last year. So, like, that's pretty good. And then also, he's completed 67.5% of his passes over the last 3 seasons for 9,518 yards, 64 touchdowns, and 27 interceptions. So, like, Brock Purdy has been someone that's been solid, and all of these quarterbacks are getting paid. And if Dak is getting paid at this point, like, you have to pay Brock Purdy. And then also, the thing you have to think about it is you have to pay your quarterback at this point in the NFL. We're not really going to see one of these teams go out on a limb and decide to just part ways with Brock Purdy, because if you have a quarterback that's taking you to a Super Bowl, you decide to gamble and draft another one, it's not going to work out for you, especially when the 49ers already whiffed on Trey Lance. So then you have to think about, all right, who are we going to go out there and trade for that matches our timeline that actually makes sense for our team? I'll wait. Who are all these quarterbacks just sitting out there that are going to be a better player than Brock Purdy for the same amount of money? Also, this team is older and in a little bit of a transitionary period. So the first few years of this deal are going to suck, but I feel like this deal is definitely going to mature well once you get past year 3. Then you're going to start to be able to build a good team around Brock Purdy. And if he doesn't earn the second deal, that's okay. The reason why I'm fine with Brock Purdy getting paid at least $181 million this year is the guy was making like $900K a season to live in San Francisco, which was one of the most expensive cities to live in the world, where the guy had to have a roommate as an NFL quarterback. Like, that's crazy work. So I think, like, for me, the thing that bothers me the most about this contract, if I had to point out one thing, would be that he has a no trade clause. I feel like that's a mistake for the San Francisco 49ers, where you have a guy who you could probably still get value for if he doesn't have a great year. But if you think you can move up for a pick and trade Brock Purdy, like, you gave him a lot of power for a guy who got you to a Super Bowl, has proven he can be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback in the right system, but won't necessarily take you over the top like a Josh Allen, like a Joe Burrow, or Patrick Mahomes. He's still a really good game manager who has some exceptional plays and is extremely accurate. But now you have given him full control of your destiny for not just him, but for your franchise.
Yeah, I don't love that either. The good news is that he's really young. You mentioned how he's been paid pennies so far since he's been in the league. Part of this money, I think, is retroactively thanking him for bringing him to the Super Bowl. And if Kyle Shanahan read the rule book prior to that, they might have won that Super Bowl potentially because they messed up there. But retroactively paying him for that. And again, I think he's like 10th, 11th best quarterback in the league. You're paying him as like the 7th or 8th best. But all these other contracts that are going to be coming back in the next 5 years, like we're going to see, I don't have a list of all the quarterbacks in front of me, but like CJ Stroud's going to get paid soon. We're going to see like, maybe Bryce Young gets his contract. I doubt he's going to have to show that he's worth it, but he's going to get paid soon. Like there's plenty of other contracts that are going to come out that are going to ultimately trump this contract. So by the time he goes to re-up his contract, he's going to be like the 15th or 16th best paid quarterback in the league. So I think they'll be fine. It is going to be sad to see George Kittle go eventually when they have to cut him, or Christian McCaffrey when he ends up walking. Like they're going to have some tough decisions, but they've been known to draft well, and Kyle Shanahan does know how to build a system around a quarterback. So 49ers will be fine, ultimately. It's just, how badly will they say it? Just the question.
Yeah, and I think it'll age pretty well because like that Jimmy G contract was also a lot, but like as time went on, I think they were paying him like $25 million a year, and that was almost 10 years ago. Now they're essentially just paying Brock Purdy double that, and he's proven I feel like that he is a better player and more durable than Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think the real issue with the 49ers isn't just going to be Brock Purdy. It's going to be Kyle Shanahan, that team. Like, psychologically, can you get back to two Super Bowls after you've lost with the same coach and still continue to compete at the highest level? That's going to be the biggest question mark because I feel like with the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey's older. He's a running back who's had injury issues. So am I banking on him being healthy? No. George Kittle's been banged up a lot recently as well. And then Debo Samuel is gone. He's not here anymore. And then so now we're relying on Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off a season-ending injury last year. And then we have Juwan Jennings. So like this team is going through a transitionary period and is going to have to do a soft rebuild over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. In the short term, though, they will be competitive. I think them and the Rams will be vying for the division and and then ultimately vying for a wild card spot. Both of those teams, I think, should be in the playoffs come January, ultimately. So short term, I think they'll still be fine as long as their team doesn't fall apart like it did last year.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, after they went to the Super Bowl, um, previously the entire team fell apart. So I think they'll definitely be able to bounce back this year.
100%. And then, we saw what happened the first time. They bounced back, they got banged up. And then when they came back the following year, they were in the conference championship. So I think they'll be fine.
And then we were going over the NFL strength of schedule, and we'll pick that back up. But the last piece of NFL news, I think it was the tush push. They put it up to a vote, and then 22 teams decided to vote against the tush push because you can't stop two guys pushing another guy's ass right down your throat. Like that's like okay, we can't handle it, so we're just gonna make a rule to ban it. Like it seems like a legitimate NFL play. It adds an interesting new element of the game, and you mentioned all the teams that vote against it, but there's one team who kept trying it over and over again, and they have a quarterback who is essentially a tight end, and they didn't do it right, and they didn't know how to execute it, and they're like, you know what? It should be banned. That's the problem with it. Because it's not just the Eagles who can perform it. We know it's not a skill thing where we know it's a skill thing now where it's a gap between like some teams can just execute it really well when they have the best mobile quarterback, at least with Jalen Hurts, he's up there, and the best offensive line in the league, but not everyone can just do it every time and make it an automatic play.
No, and if you look at all the teams that voted against it, either there were teams that believe that they can continue to do that tush push successfully, like the Eagles, like the Ravens, and what they were doing with Mark Andrews. The Lions were successful with it, and then like we have like teams like the Patriots in there, the Jaguars, the Saints, Jets, and Titans, respectively. I don't think that this play, like, I understand the risk of concern potentially for injuries, but at the same time, like, this isn't like a foolproof plan. I understand the Eagles have like a 90% success rate, but a team like the Bills, who are also a great team, who do have a player that's capable of doing similar things to Jalen Hurts, their success rate was like in the low 60s, I believe. All the teams that I feel like that voted against it were either subject to losing because of the Eagles, like the Cowboys, like the Packers, like the list goes on. Those are the teams that I feel like were voting against it. And it wasn't, I don't feel like in this regard, like the vote was meant for injury concerns, especially when this entire league is voting potentially on having an 18th game. Like, don't give me the bullshit about your player safety. Like, you don't give a fuck about player safety. You care about making money. This tush push play, I felt like it's a vendetta against the Eagles. Jalen Hurts can squat 600 pounds, and the teams that voted against it are the teams that can't stop it. ultimately. If you can stop it, you're fine. And if you are capable of performing the play efficiently, like the Lions and Ravens also can, then you don't care about this being vetoed ultimately. So I just feel like people who voted against it were ones who just don't do it successfully or can't stop it. Figure it out.
Yeah, because like for me, it's like an interesting play, and though I would be fine with them banning the tush push if it was an unstoppable play, but it's not. It's only unstoppable for one team, and I don't want us to get in the habit just because someone does something well doesn't mean we need to make up a scandal about them deflating footballs and decide to defame them. Like, no, if you can't stop them, you have to figure it out, and that's the part of the sport and that's part of competition. Like the Eagles do it better than any other team, but the Bills can do it to save their life. It's like every time they tried to do it, the guy pushing Josh Allen was tripping him. It's like, all right, maybe you should practice then.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I am curious though, because I do think that eventually this is most likely going to get banned within the next 2 years. But in the short term, I mean, figure out a way to stop it. Just like we had like the Wildcat offense in the early 2000s that took off for a while. People found a way to stop that, and then that obviously didn't work. And then there's plenty of other examples in NFL history where there's a play, or there's a format that ultimately is super successful for the short term, and then people figure out how to stop it. And now ultimately, I think the tush push, there's gonna people are finding out new ways to stop it, and I think this upcoming year we'll begin to see it not being as successful because people are starting to plan for it specifically. So I think that it'll be fine ultimately.
Yeah, no, it'd be fine. I know some people don't like that play. It's like, I get it, but at the end of the day, just stop it. Because I like when they do like a play action tush push where they line up in the formation. You get a guy wide open downfield, creates an exciting play. Like, I feel like it'll be a good evolution for the game. Get a new, is it a playbook in Madden at this point? I don't know. I haven't played any new ones.
No, it's not. It's I think it's going to be in the new Madden though, so that'll be
Okay,
good.
there we go. New tush push, and then they'll ban it. Like, all right.
There goes
Only
Madden.
on Madden 26.
Yes, new feature with the new feature that they ruined. But I missed a bunch of time because my internet hated me. So last time we were talking about the Bills' strength of schedule, and I said ultimately I think that their strength of schedule could benefit with them ultimately being in the mix for the 1 seed this time around. With, they're going to have their division, which is a naturally weak division. Plus, I think they're facing the NFC South this year, so that alone I think could be at least 3 wins right there. Maybe they beat the Bucks, maybe they don't, but um, where do we leave off ultimately outside of the Bills? And what's next?
Yeah, so we left off after the Buffalo Bills here, and then so the Bills here, like they're the only team favored in every game this season. So I'll get it out of the way. Do you think they'll be undefeated?
No,
Okay,
I think
there we
I
go.
think they could be like 13-4, 14-3, but I don't think they're going to be undefeated.
So we had Tampa, Arizona, and then after the, let me see where the Bills, So Buffalo, I cannot find them on this list, but we went over Seattle, and then after that, we have Denver and Los Angeles are both tied with the Jets. So that'll be interesting to see because Denver and LA being in the same division. Now the Chargers have a bit of a new look offense. Najee Harris, you draft a receiver, and then can you get some help with Lad McConkey? Then you also have the Denver Broncos there. Is Bo Nix going to be a fluke? And is there going to be any steps taken back? Because I don't think both of these teams are going to get back to the playoffs. If I had to pick one to miss it, I'd say it'd probably be the Broncos at this point, but we'll see what Bo Nix does in year two. But could you see him having a much better year? Do you think he's probably going to struggle now that teams figure out what Denver likes to do?
I think that they're definitely in for some growing pains. Last year, their defense was what really brought them to the playoffs. And I just don't think they really addressed their offensive needs. Like they went out and got Evan Ingram, which I think is a nice piece. I think that's going to help them significantly. They drafted a receiver, but the running game is still very poor. I think if they want to impress me, they should go out and sign Nick Chubb or one of the running backs that are still available because there's still plenty of talent that they could be taking advantage of. Hell, even Amari Cooper could still definitely benefit the Broncos offensively. I look at their defense. Their defense is still great, but we have also seen from plenty of times, especially like last year with the Ravens, like defenses year to year, they don't always carry over into the following year. Like they were a good defense this past year. Will that carry over the following year? I don't know for sure if that's going to be the case for them. They have a lot of great talent, right? Trey Greenlaw. They got Nick Benito, Pat Sertan. Like they have a lot of great players. They got Hufunga as well. But will that defense carry over? How will they stay healthy? We don't know. And then the Raiders, I don't trust the Raiders. I think the Raiders are overhyped this year. It's great that they have Brock Bowers. I'm glad they got Ashton Genty, but Geno Smith, he couldn't win his division when they had a banged up Cardinals team, with a Rams team that was falling apart with Matt Stafford, with a 49ers team that was held together with duct tape. They still couldn't do anything with the Seahawks, and now he goes to a team with a worse offensive line, with a head coach that's 100 years old, a defense that isn't significant either. So I think he takes a step back. I think the Raiders will finish last in that division.
Yeah, I could see the Raiders like coming out really hot though, starting like 6-0 and then just losing the rest of their games.
We've seen, I mean, every year there's one team that does that. And I think the Raiders, typically, if you're
Yeah.
going to be a bad team, you're usually going to start hot and then just disintegrate at the end of the season. So, especially with the
Yeah.
way that they're going to be building that team, like I just think they'll benefit from losing more than they will win, anyways.
Yeah, they're going to be 3-0 and then lose like the next 10 for
Well,
Arch.
like, like look at their receiver court. Their number one receiver is Jacoby Myers, and then
Oh
after him,
my god.
it's Trey Tucker as the number two. Like, and then Geno Smith is like a fine. I like Geno Smith's a fine. Like he's got a great story. I like what he did in Seattle. To get me wrong, but going from DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kenneth Walker, mind you, to Brock Bowers. Like Brock Bowers is great. He'll
Yeah.
be a great fantasy option, but that receiver core is a lot worse, and that offensive line is a lot worse. Ashton Genty is a rookie. I think he'll be good in the NFL, but like, there's no guarantees in the NFL either. He also played at Boise State, so like that Raiders offense, I have a lot of questions with. And Pete Carroll, offensively, historically, there was moments with those Seahawks offenses where they were very clunky. I mean, we
Yeah.
remember those like pretty much post Super Bowl Seahawks teams, very clunky offensively, where they had skits where they couldn't score any points. Part of that might be Russ, but I don't trust the Raiders this year. I think they're going to be underwhelming.
Yeah, I could see them definitely being underwhelming. I don't think anyone's going to really argue with that. I will say should be a fun team to watch though, especially
Yeah,
with the Raiders here. But I
for
think
sure.
Anston Genty will be good. But also, this is what I was going to say that I was trying to think of. I know Jacoby Myers is technically better, but still, give me Tyler Lockett any day of the week over Jacoby Myers. So your three in Seattle is going to be your one at wide receiver. I know you have Brock Bowers still, but like if you couldn't do it with DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett,
Yeah, and Kenneth Walker. Yeah, I don't trust it. Plus, yeah, I believe the Raiders will underachieve. But what is next on the docket for these teams that we've gone over? Because I think now we're entering in like the more challenging schedules. If I'm not mistaken.
we are. Yeah, we're pretty much halfway there because we have the Jets rounding out there. Then we get into the Bengals here. Average team they're going up against is going to be 9.5. And then we also have the Commanders at number 19 here as well. Um, so two tough teams. Their average win is also going to be 9.5 for the Washington Commanders that they're going up against next year. So the list I'm looking at weights it based off what they did last year and who they're facing, but it's going to be another tough year for Cincinnati, kind of rebuilding, and then Washington also having a tough schedule. It's going to be, is this a fluke or is this going to be like when Seattle lost to Atlanta and then came back next year and went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I liked what the they did, like getting Debo Samuel. It's just, is Debo Samuel going to be healthy, and is he going to be the same player? I believe in the 40. I believe in the Commanders. The Bengals, I believe in them on one side of the ball, but they didn't do anything to adjust on the defensive side of the ball. So I still have a lot of questions with the Bengals. And plus, They have the Ravens in that division, so that's always going to be a tough out. And the Steelers are always competitive, no matter who their quarterback is. So I still have a lot of doubts with the Bengals, but I hope to see them back. Hopefully,
Yeah, Bengals will be tough, especially you're playing in the North, so that's never going to be fun there. And then so after that, the Cincinnati Bengals. There we have the Cleveland Browns. The record that they're going up against this year is going to be 150 and 139. So the Bengals, Browns, Steelers, and Ravens all in the top 14 as far as difficulty next year. Which you're in the AFC North, you automatically get 6 difficult games no matter how bad one of those teams are. But it's really the story of the quarterbackless Browns. You have 5 guys. You're trying out Shador now, but everyone's saying that backup quarterback that they drafted ahead of him was drafted ahead of him for a reason. He's looked better in training camp. You have Morgan Wallen on your team now. And then you brought back Joe Flacco as well. So it's like he's he's just trying to do everything at this point to save his job because he's a 2-time coach of the year winner. He has 1 playoff win and is kicking himself every single day that he let Baker Mayfield walk out the door for a serial rapist.
yeah, Cleveland. I mean, I think they benefit from having the worst, like one of the harder schedules because you have those serial rapists, as you mentioned. He's not going to play this year. And then the rest of them are either unproven or have proven to not be very good, outside of Joe Flacco, of course. But like Dylan Gabriel, he's a rookie. I'm not putting much stock in him. Don't know much about his college career because I didn't watch him play. And then Shador, I mean, I've seen some training camp videos. I am worried about Shador Sanders and what he'll be. And then Kenny Pickett, like we saw him in Pittsburgh, he's not going to change the world for them either. Not only that, they didn't bring back Nick Chubb. Their receiver core has gotten worse. They're going to rely on Jerome Ford, who I like, but I think replacing Nick Chubb is a big shoe to fill. And then it's like Jerry Jeudy, which the show knows my sentiment on Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson, who what in the world happened to Deontay Johnson? We don't know. David Njoku's banged up. We don't know if he'll be playing. So offensively, the Browns are going to be one of the worst in the league. They're going to be borderline anemic. So the Browns, they will most likely be vying for Arch Manning next year.
Yeah, it'll be the Browns, early contenders for Arch Manning. For me, number 1, New Orleans, because I mean it's just poetic. It's where the
It
whole
is.
Manning dynasty started. That he goes back there and then he can actually be good with the Saints, and then the Raiders, number 2, and then I'm looking at you, Cleveland and New York. I would rather see a Manning in Cleveland than the Jets personally, but we'll see. But I think the Jets also have a real shot at getting him because if we're running it with Justin Fields, all right.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows
But
with that?
Cleveland's 13, and then the Chargers and the Chiefs are tied for 11. The records they're going up against are both 151 and 138. So could you see the Chiefs having a year where they actually take a step back? I know last season apparently they filmed a Last Dance esque documentary. Teams getting a little bit older now. I'm not going to be the person that's going to say that Chiefs aren't going to win their division or miss the playoffs, but do you think we're going to get a worse Chiefs team next year? Or do you think just losing the Super Bowl is going to make Patrick Mahomes go ballistic this year?
Knowing Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to go with the latter. I think he'll be fine. I think they still have a good team. They had some injuries last year that kind of hurt them in the Super Bowl, and I get
Receivers.
losing a Super Bowl drains a man. I don't think they're going to have the same voodoo magic like they did last year, where they had one of the lowest point differentials for a team as good as their record was of all time. I don't think they're going to be. I think they were 15-2, but really 15-1 by the end of the season. I think they're going to be closer to like 11-6, like kind of what we saw the year prior. They have good enough talent at wide receiver. Rashid Rice will come back. Isaiah Pacheco is still there, and their defense has been formed by, ultimately they have a great defense. So I'm not going to bet the Chiefs out. The Chargers, as a team that historically underwhelms their fans, even though I do like their rookie running back that they drafted, and I like that they drafted a receiver, they're still not quite there yet. I think they can make the playoffs, but Chargers also, like, I've learned to never bank on the Chargers, and I've learned to never underestimate Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and I think last year, you can just point to like, oh well, Rasheed Rice got hurt,
Yeah.
your best receiver. It's like when you take away Patrick Mahomes' best receiver, he still gets to a Super Bowl and loses, and that's his ceiling. When you take away Joe Burrow's best super receiver, when you take away Josh Allen's best receiver, like, are they getting to a Super Bowl? Like, he's doing things that only Tom Brady has done before. And then you have people who like want to have the cool take, like, yeah, I think this is the year the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs. Like, okay, yeah, if you have the same take every single year, it's like it's not going to have any validity to it because like you've been saying this for 10 years. It's like the Max Kellerman cliff take. It's like, but you have people like Jason McIntyre claiming that he thinks the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs next season. Like, you're just like Patrick Mahomes is just on a different level than any other quarterback, and it's not even close. There's like no one who can hold a candle to him.
Yeah. Here's the stat that I will remind people of. If you remove his games against the greatest player of all time, he is 17-2 in the playoffs. 17-2 in the playoffs. Like, the only person that's beaten him is Burrow and Jalen Hurts in February, and that's it. Nobody else has beaten him in the playoffs. He gets to the playoffs. He also has the best playoff numbers of all time. QBR like in the high 110s. Touchdown interception ratio like 10-1. Like, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. He's going to win. He could have won his fourth Super Bowl this past year, but I think he could very well win it this upcoming year. Like, the Chiefs are still very valuable.
Yeah, and I think like people just have like the bad taste in their mouth because they get blown out. But we'll see. But it's probably going to be their last hurrah. Travis Kelsey's coming back, so they got to get it everything. And then 9 and 10 are tied, so we can. They're in the same division, but the Steelers are 152 and 137, and the Baltimore Ravens are going up against 154 and 135. So they're at 9 and 10 in the same division here. Pretty much, Steelers are going to be running it with Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, and the Ravens are running it back with Mark Andrews this year, so that's a choice. We all know Baltimore knows how to riot, but thoughts on Baltimore this year, and then thoughts on Pittsburgh. Is this the year Mike Tomlin has a losing season? Are we going back to 10-7 and losing in the first round?
So I'm not worried about the Ravens. Ravens will be fine. Whether they'll make it over the hump against the Chiefs, Bills, or Bengals, we don't know. But I still think, like, the strength of schedule, I don't care about that with the Ravens. The Steelers, though, you want to talk about the cliff take? One of these years, I'm going to be right about the Steelers. Like, their defense is a lot older now. I know their defense is like the best in the NFL. I look at their defense and I see a lot of great players. But offensively, like, you have DK, and then your number two is Robert Woods. Robert Woods was great 5 years ago, but like, where Robert Woods I thought he retired like 3 years ago at this point. And then after that, like, they got rid of Najee, which might be a net positive, but like, as of right now, I look at their team. It's Mason Rudolph, Jalen Warren, DK, and then Robert Woods is your number three. Like, I'm not convinced. If there's any year, and I feel like I've said this every year that we've been on the show, this has to be the year, right? Like, everyone wants to talk about the Chiefs with voodoo magic. What in the world is Mike Tomlin doing in the offseason? Is he sacrificing goats in Idaho? Like, what is he? I don't understand how he continues to have a winning record. The winning record is the most bullshit thing of any quarterback. Like, he just finds a way every time, whether it's Kenny Pickett or Justin Fields or Russell Wilson or whoever else, Mason Rudolph. Surely this is the year. Surely this is the year they don't have a winning record, and we can end this facade. I will predict it and probably be wrong, but I will sit on that cliff.
Yeah, I'll still say the Steelers have a winning record this year. Feel like Mike Tomlin has to be taking those Obama face Diddy ecstasies, and that's how the Steelers have been able to keep the vibe going for some young. But yeah, there's some Illuminati stuff going on right now where Mike Tomlin definitely has some tape on Roger Goodell at this point.
There's something weird going on there. But yeah, Steelers, I'm going to predict them to go 8-9. Not even that bad as a record, but 8-9.
We'll go, yeah, we'll go. But with your luck, they'll probably be 8-1.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing my luck, that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm still going to be wrong. I hate the Steelers sometimes. Honest to God, just fucking suck or be good. I just want one or the other.
Yeah. No, it's in the Bible too. If you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. Be cold or be hot. It's literally biblical. And then
Yeah.
at number 8, we have the Commanders here. Their combined record they're going up against is 159 and 130. And then there are 3 teams above them tied at number 5. But interesting to see Washington here. Looks like they're going up against a pretty tough division here. But yeah,
Yeah, let me look at their schedule real quick. I'll scan through it. So they're going to face the AFC West, which makes sense why their schedule has a high strength of schedule currently, because you have the Chiefs there that kind of weighs it out. But ultimately, I don't trust the Giants. The Cowboys are a fun story, but I'm not worried about them either. Really, it's like facing the Eagles twice will be a challenge. Facing the AFC West will be a challenge. But then, you have the Giants, who I don't believe in very much. You'll have some games like with the Raiders and whatnot. Who knows what the Bears will look like? So I'm not super worried about the Commanders. I don't think that they're gonna be 10-5. It really is going to be depending on, does Jaden Daniels take the next step. I'm betting on that he does. So I don't care that they have one of the hardest strength schedules.
yeah, and I think like they should be able to go 3-1 versus the West, or at least 2-2. Do I think they'll be like 14-3? No, I feel like for this team, if you're 11-6 and 12-5, that's still a really good season, especially with how poverty this franchise is. So if you give this fan base 2 good years in a row, it's basically a dynasty for them. Like we saw what happened with Detroit. Detroit sucked for so long, and that was the greatest team ever the past few years with them. They're already dragging people in chains through Dallas, like going absolutely ballistic. So probably see some of the same stuff with the Commanders here next year. So I think they'll be back. Will they win their division? Probably, because there's not ever back-to-back division winners in the NFC East. So we're history buffs on the show. Something is going to happen in Philadelphia, whether it's injuries, knock on wood, don't want anything to happen to Saquon or Jalen Hurts, but it's definitely a possibility. And unless you're the Chiefs or the Patriots, it's like getting back to the Super Bowl is one of the most difficult tasks in sports. And we saw the Eagles last time they got to the Super Bowl. They didn't even win it, but they go 13-0 and then lose every game after that.
Yeah, they completely fall off a cliff. So it's super hard, both just like attrition wise and just mental. Like everyone there has already won their Super Bowl. Sometimes that same, the mental capacity it takes to even just fight in those playoff games is just not the same. So I can see the Eagles taking a small step back, but they'll still be really good, of course.
And then after that, this is actually a very interesting 3-way wedge here because we have at number 5 tied the Packers, the Cowboys, and the Vikings. And they're all going up a combined record of 161 and 128. Two of these things is not like the other. I think we agree. The Cowboys will be better with George Pickens, but a huge question mark at head coach. No one knew exactly what they were thinking when they hired him. And then you have Pickens, who is a really talented receiver, but is he a winning receiver on your team? Will he pair well with CeeDee Lamb? Or is Dak Prescott about to go crazy trying to reel in these personalities? We'll see what happens with Dallas, but I definitely think they'll be better. This year, the Vikings with JJ McCarthy, I think is interesting because if you can do that with Sam Darnold, what can't you do if you're Kevin O'Connell? But I think the real legitimate team who can make it through the schedule is going to be the Packers with Jordan Love if they stay healthy.
I agree. Yeah, I do think the Vikings, hot take, are not going to go 14-3 this year. Crazy take, but who knew? And then the Cowboys. I mean, we know what's going to happen with the Cowboys. This has happened pretty much since we were negative 10 years old, it feels like. So, like, yeah, like the Cowboys, what do? They signed Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Okay. Exciting. They let Rico Doyle walk to the Panthers. Cool. And now they have like a legitimate number 2 with George Pickens. But like, again, like the defense, I'm not overly in love with. Like, I like Micah Parsons, right? Defensive Player of the Year, Deron Bland, but like the rest of that team, not really impressed. Trayvon Diggs is coming off of a serious injury. The Cowboys could get crushed with the schedule, to be completely honest. And then you also have Dak, who's been banged up. We might see a Joe Milton sighting this year. The Cowboys, I think, are going to be destroyed by the schedule. Vikings, I think, due to their schedule, could be like still vying for a playoff spot, but like we might see like an 8-9, 9-8 team. And then the Packers are fine. I'm not worried about the Packers. Plus, they drafted a receiver in the first round for the first time in like 20 years. So looks like they're going all in the Packers' way. So of all of those teams, Packers will be fine. Cowboys, I think, could really get hurt by this schedule, and the Vikings should naturally come down to earth, even if the schedule wasn't hard.
Yeah, and I think the Vikings' real strong suit last year was not only their offense with Justin Jefferson, but just B flow and that defense. And you mentioned it before. Just because your defense was good last year doesn't mean it's going to carry into next season. But I feel like Kevin O'Connell proved last season that he is one of the best coaches in the NFL. Because like if you can do that with Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy is going to be a legitimate quarterback in the NFL, which Sam Darnold isn't, I don't think, outside of that one season. I feel like the Vikings maybe won't be as good during the regular season, but have a better shot to win a playoff game if JJ McCarthy ends up developing. Because when you have a full year to kind of just sit back, be a pro, and study film, like I feel like that's the hardest hurdle for most players. So I feel like it's very beneficial for him. And then no one's really talking about him either. They're like, pretty much everyone I talk to, they're like, he kind of just handed the ball off at college, so no one's really expecting anything, which I think is a blessing if you're a quarterback.
Yeah, he's got low expectations, and I feel like with him, because he got to sit behind Sam Darnold for this past year, we're gonna know whether he's good within like 4 weeks, and we'll know pretty quickly if this is the guy or not. And the Vikings can plan accordingly if not. So I think they're in a good spot, and I think JJ he'll be fine. I think he'll be like a Brock Purdy build potentially. Like that's his, I think that's gonna be like his comp, but I think he'll be good. I think he'll be better than he'll be less disastrous to Sam Darnold for sure.
Yeah. And then moving on from Minnesota, Green Bay, and Dallas, all squished in there at 5. At number 4, Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles.
I'm not worried. They'll be fine. I mean, they might have a Super Bowl hangover, but they'll still be competitive. They'll still make the playoffs. I don't care that they have the hardest strength of schedule.
Yeah. Oh no. We missed the playoffs after winning a Super Bowl. Must all be Nick Sirianni's fault.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
gonna be
much.
I love how
Uh,
that script flipped so much with them. There's like, fire him. No, actually, he's the reason why they won the Super Bowl and held it together. It's like, pick
yeah,
a
they
narrative.
changed like the season. They changed like the seasons. I like can't keep track.
And then tied at number 2, we have the Detroit Lions there. And I feel like Detroit this year will have a slow start. And then Jameer Gibbs is really going to kick it in a high gear and they'll get the run game going because you have 2 new coordinators. But the other team there is the Chicago Bears getting thrown into the fire in Ben Johnson's first year. So you want to talk about new coordinators for the Lions? Like, it's always tough when you have to replace a play caller. And I don't think Aaron Glenn was necessarily a benefit as their defensive coordinator, but the Bears are just finding themselves with the second hardest schedule in the NFL with Super Bowl expectations. I mean, Nick Wright picked them to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year. Uh, but yeah, what are your thoughts on the Lions next year? Do you think they'll start out slow? And what are your thoughts on the Bears having essentially the second hardest schedule and the highest expectations of any team next year?
So I am worried the Lions, losing Ben Johnson, he felt like the brains of the offense. So that will be, I think that I trust Dan Campbell to hire the right guy. He did it the first time. So Lions, they take a step back. They're probably not going to be 15-2, but I think they're still very good. They'll be a playoff team. Plus, you get Hutchinson back, you get Derek Barnes back, you get like their defense was disintegrated last year, and they still were 15-2. So I think the Lions will be fine. The Bears. Look, I bully the Bear. We've bullied the Jets a lot on this show, and I don't think we've fully properly bullied the Bears. Like the Bears are the NFC Jets. Like never had quarterback success, and for some reason over the last several years they've had so much high expectations preseason wise, and it's the same shit this year. You hire Ben Johnson as your head coach, and like on paper they look like a fine team. Like their defense was good last year. And their offense has the talent. Like DJ Moore's good, Omadunze's solid. They drafted a tight end this past draft, so like on paper they should be fine. Their running back is still DeAndre Swift. They spent a bunch of money on their offensive line, but can I see the Bears crashing and burning? Of course, I can see the Bears crashing and burning because if I look at the history of the NFL, that is what the Bears have done historically. Caleb Williams, we saw flashes last year, but like, did he give me the pedigree? Like, yes, I am absolutely going to be a superstar in this NFL. No, like he gave me Trevor Lawrence comps potentially. Like, I'm worried. Like, I still think Caleb Williams will be better, but the Bears, a team that historically has disappointed, will they disappoint? Yes, most likely. If people are going to put them winning their division and making a Super Bowl, no. Like the Bears are still so far away. And also, like, do we know if Ben Johnson is going to be the next great offensive mind like a Kyle Shanahan, or will he be Adam Gase? Because in his press conference, he looked like Adam Gase. So I'm not. I mean, the Bears having the second hardest schedule. Talk about the NFL gods hating you. Good lord.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting too, because like his rookie year, he was sacked 68 times, which was the most in the NFL, and it was third highest in a season in league history. So that's one thing. But he did have a streak of 354 passes where he didn't have a turnover. So he's shown he won't turn the ball over. But it's like when you're just getting thrown into the fire this much, you were 5-12 last year. So maybe you go 9-8, and that's a really good season if you're a Chicago Bears fans. But I mean, he had 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So you're really looking for him to have about 4,200 yards and 35 touchdowns would be ideal, especially with the expectations he has. I guess with Caleb Williams, we just need to see if he has that dog because a lot of people just get kind of the Carl Anthony Towns vibes from him. A lot of talent, high flying player, but is he that guy who's just going to go out there, carry his team, and get it done? And then also, is Chicago just cursed? Because there comes to a point when you've had this much talent in the past when Matt Nagy leaves and suddenly you're like, wait a minute, maybe he wasn't the problem. When we're having revisionist history about Matt Nagy, that's when you know it's bad.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, the Bears, I mean, they've been cursed. They have never had a quarterback with over 4,000 yards or 30 touchdowns. The only team to have neither 4,000 yards nor a 30 touchdown passer. So, like, if Caleb Williams, even if Caleb Williams does what you say and they go fucking 0-17, that's going to be a win for the Bears. So, I think the NFL odds makers hate Chicago apparently historically. So Chicago, I mean, I hope that they're good because I'd like to see them both succeed. But good lord, Chicago's going to get fucked because of their schedule.
Yeah, you know another team that's gonna get fucked because their schedule because they have the hardest schedule in the league, even though they're a pathetic, useless franchise, even though they have 2 Super Bowls. The Giants. Rip the Giants. The hardest schedule
Oh,
in the league is
you
the New
know,
York Giants with Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, and Jameis Winston.
you know, we talk about the NBA draft lottery and like the NBA trying to manipulate how things go. I hear that the Giants having the worst strength of schedule. I read into that. I'm like, okay, well, outside of Malik Neighbors, they have nobody else on offense. You're going to have the most hilarious quarterback depth chart in the history of the NFL with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart, and Tommy DeVito, whose lawyer, whose agent was his uncle, who looked straight out of a mob movie.
Yeah.
And then, like, yeah, they drafted Abdul Carter. Like, their defense might be better, but it's not going to matter because their running back is Tyron Tracy and Devin Singletary. Cam Scatterbo will soon arise from the shadows, but when is the question. The Giants, the reason why they gave them the worst strength of schedule is because the NFL wants the Giants to get Mr. Manning. That's what they want.
Yeah.
They want Arch Manning to go to the Giants so that next year they can get, him, running back Cam Scatterbo, legend of ASU, Malik Neighbors. Maybe they can draft a wide receiver again successfully. And so that next year is the year that they will get a break schedule wise. Right now, the NFL is an operation get Arch Manning to the Big Apple. And I'm convinced by that with them being the number one hardest schedule.
Yeah, the problem is Russ is gonna win you a couple games, and he'll have some times where he kind of looks nice, and then we don't know how you put it when Cam Scatterbo is gonna come out of the shadows per se, but he will play, and you have a running back on your team who already has CTE. So we'll see how it plays out.
Cam Scatabo used to put pads on and run into telephone poles as a kid.
What?
Cam Scatabo is a nightmare. The problem is that the Giants are stupid, and they're not going to know how to use Cam Scatabo because it's hard to use a freight train like him. The thing is with the Giants is like they have two, like who are they going to cut for the quarterbacks, right? I feel like they're going to cut either Russ or Jameis because Jackson Dart's not going to be cut. They spent too much on him. And then Tommy DeVito, he just seems like a guy that can't, like, they're not going to get rid of Tommy DeVito. He's too close to the hearts of New York Giants fans. And whether it's the Mara family that steps in or it's their bozo of a GM that steps in and says, no, we cannot cut Tommy DeVito. We're going to have to cut Jameis or Russ instead. That's the arc that I see. And I'm probably going to be right about that. And then their defense, not super, like, Abdul Carter will be cool. Brian Burns, Bobby Okereke. But, like, yeah, I think Operation Get Big Apple Arch Manning is what they're ultimately hoping for with this schedule here.
Yeah, Brian, if you do this, you can keep your job and coach him. If you don't do this, you're fired next year. But I think the problem with the Giants will be I do think their defense is actually really good.
I like Abdul Carter a lot. Here's the gauntlet of games that they start with, though. They have to go to Washington, to Dallas, go to Kansas, and then Kansas City and LA to start. So they're going to be 0-4 to start the season. They face the Saints in the Battle of the Turd Bowl. And then it's Eagles, Denver, Eagles again, 49ers, Chicago. Who knows what Chicago will look like by then? Green Bay, Detroit, the Patriots, the Commanders, the Vikings, and then the Raiders. Like, who knows what the Raiders will look like by then? The Cowboys. On their schedule, like, games that I think they win, 1, maybe 2.
I was like, Jesus Christ, I heard 2 wins in there, and you listed off an entire 17-game schedule.
Yes. So, like, they're going to be bad. Brian Dable.
Like,
is Brian Dable going to make it to the Patriots game? No. That's Monday Night Football, by the way, for the Patriots. And Patriots by then should be getting their groove, hopefully, with Mike Vrabel. That's a gauntlet of a game, if you ask me. Maybe they beat the Bears.
Schedule of a gauntlet. You get one break with the Saints. Maybe. I think you can beat the Saints, like, just with your defense alone, but you just listed off a gauntlet, and, like, maybe you catch Dallas and Washington, and that's 3 wins there, but, like, yeah, you listed off all those games, like, no. And I know, like, the NFL is super, like, surprising, but for this Giants team who could benefit from losing, yeah, it feels like the next thing where there's just going to be riots in the street of New York next year.
The question is, like, why draft Jackson Dart then? Like, you draft Jackson Dart in the first round, and for what? He wasn't even going to go in the first round. Like, he was going to go in, like, the second or third round. But if it's the sacrifice they have to make so that they can pair Arch Manning with Cam Scatabo, it's an arc I can get with.
Yeah. And then you have Tommy DeVito, who's basically Luigi Mangione on your team now. And I saw the shareholders were suing United because what he did actually worked. And they're like, oh, maybe we should actually stop committing fraud and paying out our claims. And then they lost a ton of money. If you pull up United Healthcare's chart, went straight down because all of their profits went down because they actually had to start taking it seriously. And then the shareholders are like, yeah, you got to start being unethical again because our shares are going down. So they're like, now they're petitioning United to start denying claims again, like they were doing before, and committing just straight up fraud.
That's good. I'm glad that people are thinking about committing fraud over, the rights of people's healthcare for profit. I love America. This is the thing. This is like, oh man, that's disgusting. That's awful. I hate it. Yeah, this is why I don't buy United. Like, I don't buy any healthcare stock because I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think healthcare companies should sell publicly, and it's for shit like this. Like, you're gonna deny people's claims for profit so that your shareholders are pleased. Like, I don't give a fuck about your shareholders. Like, take care of the people. Fuck them.
Also, like, what? I get you need to make a living, and we're not doing this for free and all, but like, in what world is healthcare a major business venture? Like you
It
have this
shouldn't be.
massive insurance scheme. Like healthcare should just be like, as a society, we should help each other live longer and not get cancer instead of poisoning people so we can sell them drugs.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't know why it doesn't make sense to America, but that's one thing. Like, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, like whether you're left or right, like healthcare's egregiously terrible in this country.
Yeah, and it's like we have good, and that's not to confuse that we don't have good medicine. Like we have good medicine and good doctors, but like the whole way it's set up doesn't make a ton of sense. And I feel like no matter what side you're on, there's some room for improvement. But the fact that it comes down to a guy has to shoot someone because he was being denied valid insurance claims, and then they have to backtrack. And once they do process that, their entire share collapses, and now people are like, no, you need to start affecting people's lives and killing people again. Because United Healthcare has killed more people than Hamas by denying claims.
Jesus Christ, that's terrible. Yeah, well, maybe just don't invest in a company that's that unethical and evil. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that would work. Invest in a company like, I don't know. People are going to say this is unethical, but I don't think they are. Amazon. Amazon's not an evil company. They pay
Bro.
people a fair wage. They pay them 401k, and they fucking. I ran out of dish pods today. I buy them. They're gonna be there at fucking 6 a.m. tomorrow. I bought them 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Amazing product. Invest in them.
The thing I don't understand about with people like, Amazon's an evil corporation, I'm like, you know how many people have made money off of drop shipping? You can make a living wage taking a box from a car and putting it on someone's step. You literally just need a functioning brain to be able to do that, and you can make a living wage. And then also, who are they competing against? Walmart and Target, who both suck. And you
Uh-huh.
want to talk about companies that treat their employees poorly? Like Target pays pretty well. Target's not the worst, but you can make more money drop shipping on Amazon. And then also like, where are all these brick and mortar stores that they're putting out of business? Like, if anything, it helps businesses. And it's like, I had like my brother, like, oh, my hipster friends didn't tell me it was okay to use Amazon again. Like, it's a great service and it's the best service ever invented. And who are these small businesses that Amazon is crushing? If you think they're a bad company to work for, don't work there.
Yep.
Crazy idea.
No, it helps small businesses. It helps people get off the ground. If you want to talk about an evil company in that regard, Walmart's the one that took actual small businesses out of business back in the brick and mortar era because they would come in and give super low prices. They would leave and then they would raise the prices. And then Target's just the same thing but bougier. Like it's basically just like a fancier. It's like a Whole Foods of grocery stores, basically. Just a yuppity Walmart. So those guys are both evil in that regard. But Amazon's great. And plus Prime, I want to talk about something I'm going to pay forever with. Like Prime, not only do you get TV, not only do you get free shipping, but then you also get like music. You get DoorDash, you get a Grubhub Plus for free with it. You get Amazon Music. Like Prime is, yeah, it's the best service ever. I'm an advocate. They don't even pay me to say this shit.
No, they're not even paying us. And like, I don't own shares of Amazon. I don't even have Amazon Prime, but I think it's a great service.
Yeah, I have Prime. I'll have it forever. And I am a shareholder, but not by much. Very little
Yeah.
shares.
But yeah, I think like Amazon, it's like it gets like a lot of flack. It's like a big corporation, but like I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But yeah, there's that. And then on the way to the concert yesterday, we were walking past. I see this short gay guy with a big belt buckle between two mothership security guards, and we just like walk by Tony Hinchcliffe casually.
Oh, you met Tony Hinchcliffe?
Yeah, it was pretty
That's
cool.
sick.
I just kind
That's
of
cool.
walked by him. I was just like, "Hey, Tony, saw you on Bill Maher, like your show," and then just walked away. But
There you go. That's cool. Is he as short in person as he like? Isn't he like 5'6"?
yeah, no, he's definitely shorter in person. Like I like saw him walking, and like Shanley thought it was like a woman we had passed. She didn't even recognize him. It's like,
That's funny.
Tony, I hear you're going woman. And if so,
That's funny. That's cool. Did you get a picture with him or no?
No, I don't like asking celebrities for a picture. Like, I get it if it's like your best celebrity, but at the end of the day, like, if I get to like have a moment with them, like, I'm not like a huge picture guy in general. And if I was a celebrity, I feel like I'd be super annoyed with people like asking for pictures. So I feel like I just like, hey, how's it going? That's enough for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I when I met the NFR guys, like the picture just felt like an inconvenience. I could have just talked to him, and ultimately, it's just like it didn't really matter. Just another picture in the camera roll. Ultimately,
Yeah, I even like had the same experience when I did like VIP for Yellow Wolf. Like, I would rather just like said hey to him. Like, the picture's cool, but I don't go back and look at it.
yeah, for sure. But that's cool. Meeting Tony Hinchcliffe.
But I feel like too, like with pictures with celebrities, like a lot of like people just get a picture because they know them, but they don't actually like them. And then they're just like, oh look, I got a picture with this famous person. It's like at the end of the day, they're just another person who their career just happens to put them in the spotlight in front of hundreds of billions of people. And Theo Vaughn asked Ben Affleck this question. He's like, does like money or fame make it inconvenient? He's like, don't choose being rich and famous. Just choose being rich. He didn't try and do the whole like bullshit, like, oh, well, money's not the whole deal. He's like, no, money's great and it solves all of your problems, but like, you don't want to be famous. It's inconvenient. We all saw
No,
like because he was like asking him about the meme of him where he just like has the picture of him like with the cigarette
mm,
that the paparazzi took.
no, yeah, no. I agree. I mean, being famous sucks from the sounds of it. People just taking a picture of you when you're at fucking Whole Foods. Like, leave him alone. Just let him just live his life, please. Like, it's got to be terrible to be famous in that regard. You make a bunch of money, but at what cost? You have no privacy.
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything in the sports world. I know your new favorite artist has a song. I don't know if you want to talk about that
New favorite artist has a song. What song?
or your favorite art your I guess ex
Oh,
favorite artist had a song.
maybe not today. That was the crazy part. So he has that song HH. It's like number one in like every European country, including Germany. Ironically enough,
That's crazy.
they're playing it in fucking Thai. It's the number one song in Thailand right now, and there's a video of like people just jamming out to it in Thailand, like at a bar, like a huge club. So I mean, it's. I mean, the problem is that it's catchy and it sounds good sonically, but yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to. No, I don't want to talk about that. It's gonna be a nightmare. I'd rather just pretend it doesn't exist and tell the boys privately.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a choice. Like everyone who listened to it is like, it would have been really good if he just changed those two lines. But I saw a bit reposted of Bill Burr recently from one of his specials where he's talking about Kanye. And this is from like 10 years ago. And he's like, you're like talking about Kanye. He's like, this guy literally said, my greatest regret is that I'll never be able to see myself perform live. You put this dude in a white if you put this guy in a white dude, what would come out next would be and he's like goes like that full Hitler. But like he was already comparing Kanye to Hitler back then before it was cool. Now it's all come full circle. So shout out to Bill
Yeah.
Burr.
Shout out to Bill Burr, innovator. Yeah, that's well, he's coming out with a new album, and it's probably going to be Nazi coded. So skinheads unite, I guess.
And on that note,
On
until
that note,
next
stay
time.
brick.
On that note, stay brick. But we covered the NBA playoffs, the strength of schedule. We'll start to break these down, go over a full breakdown, probably come back with the draft next week. If it's slower news week, we'll be back on Wednesdays regularly. But most importantly, until then,
Stay
stay
brick.
brick.